And good evening. Welcome back to Paul English Live here on WBN 324. It is Thursday, the 5th of December. We're with you for the next couple of hours with the usual crew, a special guest rocking up after the first hour or thereabouts. And we look forward to your company for the next 2, maybe even 3 hours. Welcome back. As if you've seen today's picture, part of our show today is going to be honouring the late, unfortunately I have to say that, and great Michael Thomas Goodrich. Hi and welcome back. Hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Here on the not-so-sunny south coast of England, you know we always start off with the weather because we're English and this is all we know how to do. But it's pitch black, it's blowing a hoolie, and it's very wet and rainy. So it's one of those squally, wet, rainy days. And we're hoping to have a jolly good show today, despite all that weather. And in spite of part of the topic as well. So if you, as I said there early on, welcome to the show. We're here on WBN 324 every Thursday, 3 p.m. US Eastern, 8 p.m. in the evening for us blighters here in England. So welcome back. Hope you've had a good week since we were here last time. Before I just wade into everything, just to let you know, WBN run an over 18 policy. These shows are for people aged 18 and over. And actually, although we aren't users of foul language or anything like that, tonight's topic, when we get rolling with it in about an hour's time, will cover the work of Michael Thomas Goodrich, who was a close personal friend of mine. So I've got a few things to say, but also a few things to find out from our guest, who will be Dave Gahary from Money Tree Publishing. Dave's due to join us, I think, round about the end of this hour, maybe 10 minutes or so into the beginning of the next one. Dave was Tom's publisher for the last few years of his life. We've had a lot of three-way conversations over the past 4 or 5 years covering all sorts of things, and I'm looking forward to welcoming Dave back onto the show for us to cover what obviously is not a particularly chirpy topic, but we're going to try and do the best we can, because the thing to remember really about Tom, as I called him, is the outstanding contribution that he's made into this space, and it is truly outstanding. There's not many people you can actually say that about. And no doubt when we get into the anecdotal sharing quips bit, when Dave rocks up, you'll find out just what a diffident, modest sort of guy he was. And anybody that spoke to him or had personal contact with him for any period of time will probably remember that. I used to feel like I was the brash American and he was the reserved Englishman when I used to speak to him. So a wonderful, wonderful guy. And I'm looking forward to going into that. And of course, because his main areas of speciality were to do with human conflict, particularly to do with the rapacious war known as World War II and the aftermath of that. And he is noted mainly for a book called Hellstorm, which many of you will know, but if you haven't heard of it before, you've heard of it just now. He wrote a book that came out about 14, 15 years ago. I think it's 2009, maybe the first publishing. I could have my dates slightly wrong. Called Hellstorm, which is about the fall of Nazi Germany from 1944 to 1947. And although we're not going to stick on this topic right now in this first hour, it's worth you noting that more Germans were killed immediately after the war than there were during it, and thereby hangs a hellish tale. And we will get into that as part of an acknowledgement of Tom's great contribution into this space. So we've all got that to kind of look forward to, I guess. I don't know if you can look forward to a thing like this. I mean, from a personal point of view, I had not heard from Tom for about 2 or 3 weeks. I'd been peppering with Skype messages. And when I got the message through yesterday from Dave, who informed me it was upsetting and disappointing, but not a surprise. He's been in poor health for the last couple of years after having suffered a stroke a few years back, and always tried to do his best. But life was a little bit of a challenge for him towards the end. But Dave will tell us more about that because I don't know the full details. So we'll get into that in a little while. Anyway, we're running I've just run a check also on the Rumble chat. So if you want to chat with lots of other Rumblers on this show, head on over to rumble.com and search for Paul English Live. You should find it quite easily. Or you can find the link directly at paulenglishlive.com and you can pitch in. So shout out to everybody in there. Welcome to the show. Good to see you. Good to see you, Giuseppe, Rising Tide Media in there. So some new people. We informed some extra circuits today with regards to the show. And welcome aboard. So there'll be an opportunity later on for you to call in. And what I was going to say was we've changed our technical setup for this, which is why I was just asking a few moments ago in the chat that the sound is okay on Rumble. I've got no kickback from anywhere that anything's going bad, so this is a good sign. It means we're good and ready to go. And those of you later on that want to call in and say something, there's going to be an opportunity to do that after once Dave's here and we've had a bit of a chat. So towards the end of the second hour, maybe into the third hour, those of you who are regular listeners here know that we leave WBN 324 at 5 p.m. US Eastern, 10 p.m. here in the UK, but we often carry on for another hour here in the old Rumble chat where it all gets really rather sordid and things like that. No, it's actually brilliant. Anyway, here we are ready to go. I've got two co-hosts here ready to rock and roll already. And Patrick, how are you this fine afternoon, I guess, for you?
Yeah, it is fine. It's nice weather here. We have sun just like you do.
Oh, yeah, and we don't.
Do you? Oh, well, it's nighttime there, eh?
Yeah, so, well, we didn't even have any sun today. It was absolutely rotten.
Oh,
I was going to actually. I just realised I meant to introduce you as the ambassador of the foreign cheese ambassador for Fockham Hall. Really, when we think about it, I haven't actually put this title to Eric just yet, but I like the idea of you being in charge of international cheese supplies. What with you coming from Wisconsin, I think that would be a good one. Really, you know.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I like cheese. Yeah, especially fried cheese curds. Those are some of my favorite.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's quite sunny here. It's deceitful though because it's cold. It's one of these cold days.
Oh yeah, you've been experiencing really, really cold. You keep feeding the temperatures through to us. We're always fascinated with how cold and how warm everybody else is, even as we're fascinated by our own temperatures all the time. But yeah, you've been telling me it's been a bit nippy, as we would say over here. Yeah.
Yeah, -6 C right now.
So that's
it's a bit
cold.
Nippy.
That is a bit nippy. Yeah, that's cold.
It got colder as the day went on, so figure that one out.
Cool.
You'd think the sun coming out would make it warmer, but it didn't.
No, sometimes. Eric, how's the weather with you, Eric? Let's start off all English and talk about the weather. How's the weather with you?
It's been beautiful blue, sunny sky. If it wasn't for the dark clouds in between the land and the sky.
Yeah.
But it's hissing down with rain here. So I didn't say pissing because that would have been rude, you see. So I've just said hissing.
Yes.
And it's like a monsoon. It's like someone grip blasting the window. It's really coming down, and they reckon it's quite a big storm tonight. There's a warning on. Got a yellow warning. That's a strange thing.
Yeah, we had heavy winds here last night, and it was threatening to storm, but it was just windy more than anything.
Is it known as windy Wisconsin, Patrick, or have I just made that up?
Well, in the wintertime, yeah, we get some blizzard-like conditions. We dip down into the -30s in January and February, typically. Sometimes sooner.
Yeah, but it's a dry cold. Isn't it a dry cold?
Unlike usually around those temperatures, it's a dry cold.
Yeah,
and
it's a damp cold.
We go out on the lake and go ice fishing and dig for fish, more or less. And I have these boots that I wear that I got from Russia, and they're just made of felt wool. They're like hammered wool, and they look like a galoshes type boot.
Do they
But,
keep your
you
feet
just-
warm?
They keep your feet very warm. I can go in them barefoot and go out in 30 below, and my feet are hot. Figure that one out. But it
Hammered
has to
wool.
be
Wow.
You say hammered wool. Is that what you said?
hammered wool. Yeah, they take it against a kind of like an anvil type form, and they hammer it together till it's nice and tight and it doesn't lose its form and doesn't pull apart. Then you put your feet in there, and when it's got to be very cold. It can't be slushy weather, because otherwise it would wick the moisture through it. It has to be cold enough. But once it reaches a certain temperature, you can go out in the snow with it and do your chores or go out ice fishing, and they're quite nice.
I want some hammered wool boots. Is there an
called
online retailer
Ushank
business
or what?
opportunity here? Get your Russian hammered wool boots now. I've never heard
Yeah.
of these things before. Which is always fun.
Valenki. They're called Valenki.
Yeah.
Velinki or
Velinki.
Valinki, something like that. Yeah.
I'm going
You
to
can
ask
find
our
them.
Russian helper when she comes in. Actually, not tonight. I'll miss her. But I'm going to ask her when she comes in if she knows about Velinki. She was moaning to me the other week about the British weather, because I always think of Russians basically existing in sort of like minus 30 degrees C all the time, because it gets sort of stupid cold. It's really silly over there, and it does get to that. But she said that she felt in England it was worse. I went, oh really? Why is that? She said because it's always raining. So the damp in the air gets into your bones or something like that. But yeah.
I almost prefer cold weather, very cold weather, to just teetering on freezing type weather where it's wet but it's still sleet.
Yep.
I don't like that one bit, because you get any bit of moisture and you get cold mixed with it, and it's worse than if you were just dry and cold and in some sort of insulated jacket.
Do you want some? I want some boots. You want some boots, Eric? What do you think? What do you think about these boots?
I wouldn't mind some boots. I mean, do they cost much? I mean, are they? How
I
much
got
are
my
the
pair for about $60.
That's not bad, is it?
60 USD.
60.
Yeah, no, it wasn't
So
too bad
that'd
at all. The
be,
shipping was, it wasn't too bad. It was about $30. I would imagine $20 to $30.
It's
Quite
interesting, isn't it?
nice.
It's all quite
Might you-
exciting. Yeah. What do they come in
Could
different
we wear
colours?
them over here, Paul?
Yeah,
I
you
don't-
can get embroidered ones. You can get all
What?
sorts of colored ones. Yeah.
What, with
They go
anything I
crazy
like
over
on
there
them?
with that.
I think I'd look quite good in a pair of embroidered Valinkis.
Yeah, I'm told though that I look kind of like a Russian peasant when I wear them, like a farmer that goes out to check on his chickens
Yep.
in the middle of the night in the cold. They wear that kind
Anyway,
boot
enough
around
of this gay banter about Russian shoes. Although I want to see you. Look, when you get some, will you take a photograph and send it over? And we can maybe,
Sure.
if I get the hang of this stuff with the video thing one day, if I can be bothered. I mean, I'm just a sort of a dullard, with all this sort of graphic stuff. But maybe we should start to show. We could display your shoes during the show, and we'd burst the order books and get going. Swiftly moving on to something very stupid this week. Now, I don't like to get into Christmas too early, and that's an understatement. In fact, I think it should be left as late as possible and end as quickly as possible. Not because I'm a mork, but I just think the whole thing has gone into a bloat fest. Certainly during the last 20 or 30 years, it just gets ridiculous. There's a sort of... I don't know if you have it around I know you'll probably have it in some parts, Patrick, because I think your lot started all this. But the the heavily illuminated, overly decorated houses that are consuming 5,000 kilowatts per minute or something because of all these illuminations. We've got several houses around here that have really got into all that kind of stuff, and for the life of me, I can't understand why. Anyway, they're already glowing, in the night sky. I mean, we're still 4 weeks away from the whole thing, or 3 weeks, or whatever it is. You got any of that kind of stuff going on round near you, Eric? He's gone.
He's mute.
Yes, we got someone with like it looks like reindeers.
Really?
I'm still here.
Yeah.
Hello?
Well, that's nice. No, we can
Yep,
hear
we
you.
hear
That's
you.
lovely.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
And so the thing is that there are people that are a little bit over the top, and there was a fantastic photograph on social media that showed this house that's absolutely illuminated, covered in Christmas decorations, and somebody had just got an illuminated sign with next door with "twat" written on it with an arrow pointing towards the
I like that guy already.
So-
Oh, that'd have been me. What a great guy. Illuminated twat. That's fantastic. That's brilliant.
Yes.
Well, speaking of
An
illuminations,
illuminated
and
twat with an arrow, you know.
yes, speaking of Christmas illuminations, Keir Starmer, the farmer harmer, was involved in turning on some lights or something the other day. Listen to this if you can. Oh, hang on, it's just reloading. Come on, you bugger. Very slow, the
Christmas,
internet.
of course, is all about bringing people together, family, communities, all of us celebrating in the way that we traditionally do. And it's the tradition, therefore, to turn on the lights with that familiar start. So can you please join me when I say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay! It worked. Nervous moment there, but it's all good.
Wow. Well, I don't think we'll be inviting him along to open anybody's lights. That was impressively bad. What do you think? Impressed?
Yeah, he was so excited. It was just amazing how excited the guy sounded.
He's just a walking block of concrete. He's unbelievable. He really is. He actually makes
I'll
Joe
tell you
Biden
something,
seem
he's-
lively and fun, don't you think? He does.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, I do think they dig him up in the morning because he does look a bit sort of. He's been a bit cold his last couple of mornings. He's looked a bit sort of. Worms are just falling out of him, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that he could actually cure insomnia. If you wrote an autobiography, if an autobiography was written, you'd get to about the first page, and people that insomniacs would just fall off to sleep immediately, wouldn't they? I mean, he puts the B in boring, doesn't he? I mean, but I actually think he's the sort of person that would be marvelous as a head torturer because he could actually bore people to death, couldn't he? Just sit and talk to them. My godfathers. But the question that I wonder is, how does a person without a personality get to the leader party? How does that happen?
I don't know.
He must be parachuted in. Look at Biden. I mean, he's got the personality of a sort of dung beetle, isn't he? Really?
Yeah,
Maybe it's just a game to keep on putting in bigger and bigger idiots. I mean, honestly, seriously, I'm not impressed with Joe Biden apart from something or other, which I can't even be bothered to think about. What I mean, the fact that he even stands up or whatever, it's just ridiculous. But they make ours even now more stupid. But today, in jolly old England, he was... I actually switched the sound on for this morning for about 10 seconds. It was about all I could bear. The BBC were covering some live government shindig. Oh, plan for change. They're always in for change. How about plan for keeping things exactly the same? That'd make a change because it's always about change and progress, isn't it? Anyway, he's droning on about milestones and things they've got to do. There were 6 of them. I don't know if you've heard them. Let's read a few out and you can comment as we go. These are all... Anyway, the first one is putting more money in the pockets of working people.
How many times have I heard that? I think Harold Wilson was the first one with that one, wasn't he? First time I
Yes.
ever heard it.
Working
Harold
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Working people, yes.
Yeah, putting more money in the pockets.
who's
it's a bit-
working?
I don't know. It's wonderfully
who's
vague,
working?
isn't it? How much?
We don't actually have an industrial output now, so people are either flipping burgers in a burger bar,
Yeah.
or doing sort of meaningless job. They're not designing things, building aeroplanes and ships and locomotives and cars and things like that. We don't have an industry anymore. So what is a working person? I don't know. I mean, surely would that be an immigrant that comes over and works for a delivery firm?
I would think so. Yeah, seems jolly
Hasn't got a
sporting
driving
and good.
license.
Yeah, why not?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yes,
I think the counterpoint to that, so I'll read it out again. It says, putting more money in the pockets of working people. My counter-argument would be extracting vast sums of money from the pockets of central bankers and distributing it into the pockets of the working people. You see, if they just put that bit on, I'd kind of be more interested, really, in the whole thing. Anyway, of course, when they get around to doing it, they won't be able to tell us where the money's going to come from because they don't understand that at all, do they? But they are going to put more money in the pockets of you. So everybody out there that's listening in England, if you're working, yippee! There's a lot to look forward to, apparently. It's going to be great. The next one. Oh, God. Building 1.5 million homes and fast-tracking planning decisions on at least 150 major infrastructure projects. Well, how's that going to cope? 1.5 million homes is a drop in the ocean if they're pulling in 1 million people a year. What's going on?
But perhaps the working people are making brown envelopes.
Yeah.
So that to build so many million homes, they can put the backhanders in the old wadges of money in the brown envelopes to, shall we say, give to the planning people. So that's probably going to create work in many ways. And of course, the building industry. What gets me, the indigenous population is actually dropping like a stone. We're not having so many children. So what do they need to build all these homes for? I know what it is. People coming over on inflatable boats
Rubber dinghies
from France. That's what.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah,
Rubber
just a
dinghies,
troublemaker, you Eric. You're just stirring it, you know.
But just look at the national statistics. We've got to have far more children to keep the population going. I think a woman now is down to something like 1.5 or something, when the minimum it should be is 2.
Well, then how come they're not giving out baby bonuses then to the British people? That's the question you should be asking.
I like your
bringing
idea.
It to working people.
Yes.
That
surely should be the way to go. To encourage British family. Oh, no, can I say that? No, I can't say that. To encourage the growth in British families. So we wouldn't really need 1.5 million homes, would we? What about the repatriation? Oh, no, I better not go there.
I was listening today. Apparently, Biden went to Africa, to sub-Saharan Africa, and they're building a $6 billion rail system for Africa, so we can get the goods on their rare earth minerals to build battery cars.
Wow, that's great. So you can extract the wealth from Africa even faster. Is that what it's about?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And as the infrastructure here in America goes to pot, we're building high-speed rail over in Africa. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Yep. These mammonists, as I call them, the money monsters, they're geniuses. Absolutely, yeah, it's amazing. Well, I'm going back to that clip I played several months ago of the First Lady of Sierra Leone. Do you remember? You might not remember it. It's quite brief, and I should have it around to sort of throw it up again, but I don't. She was talking about foreign ownership of African resources. And I think the figures she gave were something like, she said, the vast majority of all the businesses, the big ones, in Sierra Leone are owned by Americans, Britons, and the Chinese, or their multinational corporations. Not you, of course, Patrick, and not you, Eric. You don't own any of it, and neither do I. And neither do most of the good listeners on Rumble and here on WBN, wherever you may be located. We don't own any of that. But she said that they would come in and they could extract $100 million of something, $100 million worth of some stuff, and they would get $10 million for that. Maybe not even that. I think it was even worse than that. So that's the deal that they're faced with.
The other way around.
Yeah, and then you get the situation where we get them here right now, continuous adverts on TV about the poor state of the infrastructure in Africa. And will you, dear English person, get your hand in your pockets as if you can find that money that's just gone in there from the Labour Party because they've just put more money in your working pockets, so you take that out, they give it to you, and you're supposed to give it to them to solve the problems that they've had since I was a child on TV. Problems that have existed since I was a child. And there's no way certainly a factor that's got to influence that has got to be the extraction of all their wealth by these multinational corporations, which, by the way, we don't see any benefit from that either, except that we kind of supposed to think that it benefits us because it benefits the West or something, which basically means it benefits the multinational corporations based in the West. Doth it not? It do. Anyway, so there we go. 1.5 million homes to be built. Yippee. That's going to solve nothing at all. Next one, number 3. So they're doing quite well. 0 for 2 so far. Treating 92% of NH patients within 18 weeks. Well, my first thought is, what do they do with the other 8%? What's going to happen to those poor buggers? This is hilarious. In fact, I was out with some chums the other night. Last night, in fact, I drank a pint of Guinness and it really hurt my head this morning. I've just not got to drink anymore. It's terrible. What a baby, right? And obviously we have a local hospital here, which is slowly being perceived as being overwhelmed, which it is. It's very difficult because there are more and more houses being built for a hospital now that used to serve the actual sort of housing footprint and the local population, but now the local population is getting too big. And you only need to swell it a little bit to cause a complete log jam in all the sort of flow systems, I guess, of patients in and patients out. And somebody mentioned to me that what people do is they just check themselves into A&E now. And I've been down there a couple of times over the past 2 years for a couple of things for myself. And I remember going in one time, and there were a lot of people in. The number I got yesterday was like 140. So they can't get in the hospital. So they just go check themselves into A&E, and it's just spilling over. So I'm sure they'll get the NHS sorted out without it costing us an arm and a leg because, they're geniuses at this sort of stuff. So that's something else to look forward to, isn't it? Marvellous. Really good.
Well, the NHS runs on PR, and it always has done and always will do. Has a massive PR department. And if you look at the mainstream media, such as the BBC, they're always praising the NHS to the hilt. But you see, if they looked on clean food and natural food and healthy living, they could empty the hospitals by about, I reckon, 90% of the people wouldn't need to be there. And have you noticed the amount of nurses that look like fat blobs lolloping around?
Very close, a bit
exactly
savage.
The health, are they?
And then but
it's
true,
true,
they wouldn't
though.
be able to justify killing people, giving them lethal injections like they want to nowadays.
Yes.
Didn't you just recently have some bill proposed? I don't know, did it go through?
It went through.
Where it went through. Okay, well, that's terrible news.
It is.
It's absolutely tragic because you're going to have people now just being killed because they're depressed or they lack the money to feed themselves, so they're gonna say, well, then just take the easy way out and kill yourself and suicide. It's
they're doing it in Canada, aren't they? If
they've been doing it in Canada, and they're wacko up there. Yeah. There was one town up in Canada called Emo, Canada, and they got fined $10,000, $20,000 for not flying a rainbow flag on their town sign. it's terrible. The government is a joke. The feds.
Well, I think they've used Canada as an outpost of social engineering. They've used it as a social engineering testbed, haven't they, for decades? All sorts of strange and odd things have gone over there. They're using us as that too. You don't have the 15-minute city things planned just yet, do you? Or as
No, they apparently do here. Even in Minneapolis, St. Paul, they have similar projects going on. I don't know if they have them already or not. I don't pay attention to it because I really don't care to, because it's such a terrible topic, but they do. They have them here, and I don't know what's coming of that, but it's not good, and we need to fight it every way that we can, and I guess letting people know what's going on is the best way to do it.
Really, it is turning into literally the National Health Service. There's no two ways. I mean, it's just horrific. Well, what's their first declaration? Do no harm, isn't it, or something? What's the Hippocratic Oath?
Well, that goes back to the Hippocratic Oath. That's an ancient Greek way of looking at things.
Apparently,
they tried to get rid of it. Oh, I'm sorry. They tried to get rid of the Hippocratic Oath if they haven't already.
I think they have in this country.
Yeah,
I think they have in this country. I don't think they have to give the Hippocratic Oath now. But really, if you pass an NHS hospital, if you notice, there's rainbows all over the bloody place, in the signs everywhere.
Oh, even here in like the USDA that inspects livestock and that sort of thing, they apply that stuff, that crap, because it's mandated. They make it seem like they'll get their funding taken away if they don't do it. It's like if you tried to boycott certain countries in the Middle East, they'd they go after you as well.
I mean, every single aspect of our, I know we've said it before, we're saying it now, and we'll say it again because we have to keep saying it because it's useful to keep saying it, but every single aspect of our the remnant of our civilized life is infected with what used to be known as cultural Marxism, cultural wokeism now. Is it wokeism, globalism, nonsenseism, mentally defective illnessism? It's absolutely got to a bizarre level. And the thing is that there are literally very, very few opposing voices. And when they do oppose, we're really at that hellish dynamic now in the crowd, as it were, where anybody that speaks out, the others in the crowd have become so fearful of the consequences of anybody speaking out that they actually jump on the people that are actually seeking to communicate things back to the truth for fear of getting punished themselves and being tarred with the same brush. And it's now like an ever accelerating spiral as fast as you can go to the bottom. Even in... Gosh, if we look at so-called political debate, and I mentioned this when I was on briefly with George Hobbs a little bit earlier today, which was, if you tuned into that was George made me look like a technical genius today. It was absolutely brilliant. It was fantastic, really funny. But George, I'll be back with you, and maybe he's listening now. He's just a wonderful top guy. But we had a lot of technical fun with that. But I was just saying over here, and I think it must be the same over in your neck of the woods as well, Patrick, that whenever any of these policies are mooted or any of this nonsense falls out of the orifices of these retards posturing as political leaders, there is zero, I mean literally zero pushback. There are no rebuttals. There are barely any objections. The whole crowd of it is just literally a big sheep pen with them all waiting to get fed at the end of the month.
The only person I heard objecting to it were Catholics, Catholic hierarchy.
Right.
There's a cardinal in I think Nichols that's in the UK, and he was adamantly against it. Other than that, I don't know. I've never heard anybody there speaking out against it of any sort of platform.
No, they just. I think the vote went through 300 and odd to 200 and odd, but it doesn't matter. It's an insane proposition.
The fact that the fact that they even debate it.
The fact that they actually wasted taxpayers' money talking about this, if they can talk, I don't know if they can even do that now, or just studying it and approving it. It's just, we don't want it. And the whole thing is, I suppose, that even describing it like I'm doing and us paying attention to it is kind of counterproductive in a way. I guess we have to be aware of some of the madness that they're up to. But I want to just... Can't I just build my own people's parliament? I just want one. We all need to really, Eric, get a passport for Fockham Hall, don't we? Don't we all need Fockham Hall passports?
Yes, definitely need a Fockham Hall passport. Yes.
Yeah.
I've been designing one for ages, just one you can download. But the thing is, you can't move to Fockham Hall because you declare where you are as Fockham Hall. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit like Alaska is to America. You have to go via Canada to get to Alaska.
Yeah.
And so you'll have these little areas of Fockham Hall. So where you are, Patrick, you'll be Fockham Hall, surrounded by the United States of America. So there we go. So, and I was thinking this passport, something like, please allow me to pass through your crummy country. I won't stay there for long. Something polite like that.
Well, we had a proposal. These guys, they call themselves the Plaid Army up in Canada, Jeremy Mackenzie and Derek Harrison. And Jeremy Mackenzie came up with this idea of the land of Diagolon, which extends from Alaska all the way to Florida in a diagonal line of states between it, including Canada. So we could do something like that. That might be a little bit better of an option. You get both seas involved. You get the Pacific and the Atlantic access.
Well, it'd be Fockham Hall, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be Fockham Hall, and
I know we're speaking of it obviously, of course, in terms of slight jest, but I am sure I have seen things with people talking about what's it to do with about who really owns the land, this stuff, right? Because supposedly the Crown owns it. Well, I say they don't then. So we need to start this movement that says you don't, we own it. And surely if we were to look at the properties that we own, we could build up the Fockham Hall empire within the empire to restore the nation and say that all these Fockham Hall properties are all part of the restoration of the nation held by English and Scottish and Welsh. And I mean, that'd be dangerous, wouldn't it? Can you see how dangerous what I've just said?
You have to capture the land that was confiscated originally.
Yeah.
You have to have a means of doing it.
Well, did you know that Canadians only officially own 1 foot of soil beneath their feet, and the rest is owned by Queenie or Kingy, by the way, the Crown.
Aren't we the same, Eric? Aren't we similar to that?
I think we might be similar. Yes, yes. Whereas you see with Fockham Hall, Fock Bobs will be internationally recognised. So you, Patrick, in America, be using Fock Bobs, and they'll be same as what they are in the UK and everywhere else. I know it sounds a little bit like a one world government, which I'm a little bit afraid of, or very much afraid of.
Oh, go on, form
Well,
one, Eric. It's okay. Let's have one. I'd rather have you.
I'd rather have a one world government that has a benevolent leader or benevolent Congress than what we've got now, where it's all
yes, I suppose you've got a good point.
divided.
Yes, and but how do you feel about Fock Bobs? You know, you said
yeah. Why not? It's better than Fed Bobs that we've got controlling us here.
You could have I don't know the state because you have state governors, don't you, over there?
Yes, each state has a governor.
Yeah, we sort of have counties, but they have I couldn't name who the county, I don't know, chief is.
Yeah, we have counties too in certain states, like Louisiana, where it was originally French territory. They have parishes, they call them, instead of counties, but it's a similar situation.
Yes, well, we have counties.
We do. We have counties. And we have parishes within counties. As I said, there's about 12,500 parishes in the UK, something like that. And they are known. And there's 16,000 or something like village halls. I've mooted this stuff before, but I've just not got off my rear end to do anything. But we need almost like an administrative centre to just basically document it and make the documents available. And it's got to be, the thing is, it's got to be simple. It's a bit like the task that's faced by the farmers, with this nonsense from the Labour government about introducing inheritance tax and on them. And so what we've heard is the Labour, they need to be paying inheritance tax. Okay. And they're not paying inheritance tax. Okay. And then we say, but this is putting them in harm's way. You've then got, in other words, no one's going to carry on farming because they can't afford to actually do it because of the absolute wallop of this tax. So that's one thing that we've heard in the media. Then another thing that we've heard, which is a way of coping with that, would be for farms to form their own trusts, put it in trust, and then it doesn't become liable to inheritance tax, because that's what the very powerful, rich and wealthy do, which is why they have all this huge stash in these offshore funds in the Cayman Islands and all this stuff. And we're talking... Trust. Yeah, we're talking
the Limburg money trust.
That's
right. After that, you got to break those up in the directorates, the locking directorates and things.
So they could do that, but as Jeremy Clarkson pointed out when he was being interviewed by that BBC Bimbo, whatever she was, a Derbyshire, unbelievably tiresome bint, he said, why should they? Why should they have to put that work in? This is why? It's okay now. Just leave them alone. Let's get on with it. But the one that we haven't heard. I haven't heard it anyway, is why does anybody pay inheritance tax anyway? Let's just scrap it completely. That's the one. Then we don't have to have a department that requires wages.
It's usury. It comes back to usury.
Oh, Patrick, you and that old chestnut. I have to provide a countervailing voice every now and again, even though I completely agree with you. I'm trying to play sort of,
I'll give you an example, Paul. What happened to one of my coworkers at work? They inherited a house that their uncle left the house to them, and he had medical problems. He lost a leg. I think he might have been diabetic and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And they planned to clean up the house. It was a pigsty, and they cleaned it up, and they were going to get ready to sell it and make a pretty penny off of it. $100,000, $120,000 they were looking to get. And then this last week, they got a letter from Medicaid, which is our government NHS type setup for insurance. And the guy had a $900,000 overdue bill. So they're going to take and confiscate the property from them, even though they've spent all this time fixing it up, making it nice and livable again. Mm-hmm. And they could have done it right away. They waited and they fixed it up. And now it looks like they're going to have to hire a very feisty lawyer that can represent them or lose it.
And the lawyer that they're going to have to hire, Patrick, will he want paying?
He'll be in the bar.
Will he want paying? Will he want money?
Oh, of course. Yeah, there goes the another amount of money that will come from that house pay, it's just a terrible system we've got. It's a vampire communism type system where they have a
Yeah.
huge graduated inheritance tax, income tax, property tax. It's
Yep.
Communism by the back door.
So if we go back to
Yep.
these 6 points that I was just mentioning, it's absolutely communism by the back door, Patrick, absolutely spot on. We've go back to the first of these 6 points, of which we've only covered 3, and of course we're almost exhausted and drained down to a nothing listening to this piffle. But putting more money in the pockets of working people, if we were to remove usury, that would sort of do that a bit, wouldn't it? Don't you think?
Do you need an enforcement, though? That's the problem, is because who's going to enforce it? Because right now it's state-enforced usury that we have in a system where the police, you try to not pay your property taxes, they'll come and they'll confiscate your property and take you away.
Mm-hmm.
I know plenty of people who challenged that, and they ended up in prison.
I'm not suggesting direct action at all. Not under the current
you got to be
circumstances.
prudent about it, and this is the issue, is because you don't have enough outrage over it. And the churches have really let people down in that regard, because they should be looking out for the poor. And most of the time, these poor people who are in these mortgages are the ones that are given the shaft, and the usury is placed on them, the burden.
Yeah, absolutely right. It is. I do think it's a numbers game to some degree. That's why I mentioned that petition thing that was running around the other week. Not because I believe that petitions work, but that the nearly, and probably has gone over it now, I don't have the link in front of me, but 3 million people signed this thing, let's have another general election. But what we really need them to say is 3 million people saying, let's shut down the private banking system and replace it with a nationally owned bank where all the people of Britain own it and have a share in their own bank. And we get rid of usury.
Yeah, and you have to be a citizen in order to be a member of the bank.
Of course, you have to be a national. You have to really, clearly define who qualifies. Yeah, because and it's a transformation maybe of this word state. We're right to view it as a dark word because it is. It's become a very dark thing, the state. But if it means the condition in which we live, which is really, I suppose, its initial meaning before it's got perverted, by the abuse of it, then we want a state. We want a condition in which we want a stake equitably distributed, look at me using all their language, amongst the people that are of the nation. In fact, it's really interesting, isn't it, that, communism is always banging on about equality, this completely non-existent condition that no one's ever seen or ever will. Yet, if they wanted to divide ownership of the bank up, we've now got all the technology to do it. You could easily argue, say, back in the 50s and 60s, you go, this would be administratively impossible and so costly to do, we can't do it. Okay, fair enough, gotcha. Not now. You get a PC and run it on an internet thing. I'm serious. You could just get a pokey little server.
I agree.
Couldn't you? And you go, well, there's only 65 million. That's easy. I can run that on a spreadsheet, right? So no one ever says this. No, in other words, and they're not going to. And it's not so much because they're dim, although they are dim, but I feel that they're so constrained by the bubble in which they live, a bit like Hollywood superstars who think they actually know things about politics and all this other goofy stuff that they get up to, right? They live literally in a closed world, and you and me pointing that out to them, we can't point it out to them. They actually can't hear it or see it because they're in this bubble. And you can see them when they're talking on TV about their wonderful plans, like these 6 completely childish points that they've come up with. Oh, yeah, we're just going to do this stuff. We're going to just put money in your pocket. Well, just tell me how. They can't because they're going to borrow more. And we go, no. We've got a better way. You don't have to borrow it at all. We'll just make our own money. What? Yeah, why don't we just supply our own money to ourselves, please? And that solves every one of these things. Anyway, we'll come back to this thread again because we're bound to. And we've got about 15 minutes to go to the top of the hour. Let's go to point number 4. Recruiting 13,000 more police officers, special constables, and PCSOs. What's that for? I don't know what a PCSO is. You might know, Eric. In neighbourhood roles. Right. Okay. So
they're not policemen. They've got the power of a citizen's arrest, which is the same as us.
Right.
They just wear a uniform and they support the police, and it's a cheap thing. Normally, though, sometimes rather not normally, they are better than the average police because they're local people and they know what's going on. So
Right.
sometimes they will be more dedicated than the police because the police might have come from 20, 30, 40 miles away, whereas a lot of the PCSOs actually live locally.
It's kind of like
So,
we call them a community watch type
that's similar,
organization.
yeah.
Okay.
Very, very similar, yeah.
Well, when
First
Robert
responder.
Peel, when he set up the constabulary or whatever he originally, the police force here, what you've just described, Eric, is really what his intention was. He said basically every citizen, or whatever terminology used, every individual who lives here is actually a part of the upkeep of the law and should know it and should be trained to know the principles of it, to upkeep it in their capacity as civilized people. The police force are like people that just know a bit more that you would go to, but we're all working on the same side. And it was not to make everybody paranoid about stuff. It was just to make sure that, if you've got the vast majority of people upholding the law, good, jolly good. Of course, we do have this rather thorny problem that there are now about 2 million laws in this country, or some stupid number. So therefore, the law is literally and has been made unknowable, which is why we have to come and see your lawyer friend, Patrick, and pay him lots of money to work it out for us, because no one can work it out. Not even him. He can only work it out in special area of law. Can't he? These guys. That's all they can do.
Yeah, and they almost have to do it pro bono in order to make it just for everybody. It's like you need an advocate that can stand up for poor people that don't expect to have this huge return, and that's the problem with lawyers and doctors and clerics and all these people that are the elite white collar workers, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because they demand such a high premium for their services that is just completely unreasonable in a fully functioning society. They should be able to practice and get by with a smaller wage than they're getting now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's greed. They're
It is.
well paid for a reason, because these people are the ones that have life and death over other people, like this whole suicide bill where you have 2 doctors and a judge sign off on it. They basically take over for the ancient priesthood, because the priests were the ones that, with the judges, that ruled over cases in the biblical laws.
It's chilling. It is chilling.
Yeah.
And it's I caught Andy Hitchcock talking with Peter Hammond on Tuesday.
Yeah, that was a moving one.
It was a wonderful show. So if any of you are aware of Andy Hitchcock and his show, it's achshow.com, or I think it's achshow.com. You'll find his show from Tuesday. Now, Peter is a pastor, a vicar, a priest. I don't know what his official title in South Africa. Wonderfully knowledgeable about many things. It's a very moving show because it's very personal to him, and they're addressing this. And he recounts how his mother was treated and several other people that he knows who recovered in spite of the insane advice given by doctors who are often wrong. And it's this. There's a culture in the hospitals, and I felt it because I've spent, as you know, some time there this year with my wife, who's currently now at home and in a much better place because of it, whatever may be. But it's not the individuals down there that are the problem. It's the culture in which they're operating, and there's literally been a removal of intelligence out of the space. And it's all procedure, and it's all directives, and it's all obeying the rules. And that's what this new thing is, a new rule. And in our Prime Minister, I don't want him, by the way, he's not mine, but in the Prime Minister, this chap, Starmer, that's floating around, you've got a guy who's literally a rule follower and doesn't understand actual life. He's a lawyer. All he does is he looks at dots and I's and terms and clauses and stuff like that, and I'm absolutely convinced, cannot perceive the underlying reality about what he's dealing with. He's just a guy that's got a rule book, and that's it. And that kind of culture seems to have run right in, or has built up in the NHS, and it's very, very sad. The care that my wife gets at home from the community nurses is amazing. And it's like being back in the old NHS as it used to be, before it all went completely woke and pear-shaped and mad, and they're all dancing around and goofy and didn't know their head from their asses. And again, this seems like a hypocritical thing to say. Well, it is, because if you've experienced the culture, they're not. There's that kind of 1984 Soylent Green weird thing going on down there. You've got a hive mind being built up, and you can't get into it. It's shocking. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, we had to deal with
the
that
robots.
mentality when my grandpa passed. It's just like the uncaring nature of some of the people, not
Yep.
all of them. There were
Yep.
some real gems of nurses that actually cared and took
There
care of him.
absolutely are. Yeah, there's some brilliant ones down there, and I don't mean to. I'm just saying the overall. I can
underpaid.
tell there's something about the way that they communicate. They've been so trained. I don't know what their training modules are like, and I understand training modules because I used to be part of them, and I know what they do, and all these goals and targets, this exhaustive language of the business executive world that is so bloody boring and dull. God, it is, and everybody is all earnest, and I'm going to get the top marks and all this crap, which just drives me up the pole. It's not real life. It's just conforming to a system. That thing has entrenched itself in there to such a degree that they daren't think, and I understand exactly why. They've got to get paid at the end of the month. There's always that in every sentence we're talking about. Somewhere at the end of all these sentences, someone's got to get paid, and that's why they do this stupid crap that they do. And they've moved away from common sense. It's all part of
And
it.
a lot of our health institutions started out as religious hospices. Especially, like, for instance, the Mayo Clinic, which is known as one of the best clinics in the world, it started out in Rochester, Minnesota as a convent of nuns taking care of sick patients. And it gradually got bought up by corporate medicine and has now become just this behemoth of regulations and pushing things like the COVID lockdowns and all that sort of thing, the paranoia, in order to make money off of people's fears.
Yep.
Instead of being there as a charitable organization of mercy for these poor people in their sick condition,
Yep.
that can't help themselves. And it's a vampiric thing because the families and the relatives end up being the ones that pay for it later on.
It's horrific. It is. It's literally a parasitical vampiric thing. They think that really the other difficulty is that many of them think that they're doing good because that's what they've been trained and told that they're doing, but they're disconnected from that human element that makes it work, that makes it acceptable and understandable. And it's easy to say, well, we're a caring company and all this. It's all piffle. All you know is when you're in the presence of someone that's actually caring, you know it, and when you're in the presence of someone that's not, you know that too. It's an experience that you have about their attitude and the way that they're dealing with it. It's they are doing exactly what you said, Patrick. They're doing it, and it's evil. There's no other way to describe it. And they've been inducted into it. They have, in my view.
My father, when he was in hospital, fell out of bed and was on a cold floor all night as the patients were pressing the red button to get a alarm call, and the nurse had actually signed on that evening and gone home. So there was nobody there, and they found him, luckily, still alive in the morning. Excuse my language, there's only one word for it. The bullshit I got from the nursing people, me and my sister got, was just beyond belief. When I went there, there's nurses standing around my father going, he'll be looking after him. It was so false. It was embarrassing. And they said, we left him there because it had been dangerous to have lifted him.
Yeah.
And the patients that were around said, hang on, there was nobody here. There's nobody. The person had gone home. The nurse had gone home. And what happened is instead of the nurse that went home being pulled over on the coals, she just played the R card, race card, and of course everything's okay. So that's the thing. The system, NHS hospitals, I think, are terrifying. My father had a locker, and my mother did as well, where they put the soiled washing in and they never clean it out. So the washing is almost crawling out on its own. And of course, the patient's visitors and that have to do the patient's washing for them. What my parents had to eat was aeroplane food. I looked, there's nothing nutritious at all. When you look on the side of the containers, like there was a jelly and it looked like the contents of a chemistry set. Nothing to build you up and make you with vitamins, no vitamins at all. It was horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
I think you're absolutely right. Although I have to say, the food where my wife wasn't too bad. I have to say, it was not too bad. But you're right in certain regards. What I think these things are as well. I know I'm coming back to my hobby horse thing, but it's true. All of these things that we're talking about, this erosion in quality standards and common sense, is, in my view, directly attributable to the fact that the money system puts people in a position where they're always seeking to extract more profit by delivering less value. The entire game of the way that we work is designed and will wipe us out. It's like we're actually depleting ourselves to win in a game that's not worth winning. There's no point having all this money because there's nothing of quality left in the world to buy, if you know what I mean, because of the way that we go about doing it. The usury thing chews up value everywhere. And it's that thing. Quality money produces a quality civilization. Poor quality money, which is what we are compelled to use through positive law by force, produces this. And this is what's happening. It's everywhere. It's like a hidden thing that most people are not going to see, right. But it's there. It's absolutely there.
They act dumb. For example, where my mother was, she had a urinary infection, and they took her night attire off, and then flung it on the floor and left it there. Mm-hmm. So that had been there all day, and the stench when we walked in was horrendous. And remember, it's a ward full of other patients. So I complained, and my sister complained, and they said, "What do you want us to do?" So I said, "I'm sorry, you're supposed to be professionals." Well, what would please you, sir? What do you mean, please me? And I was just holding it together. I'm normally a very placid person. I said, "Sorry, are you telling me that a soiled nightdress on the floor with someone with an infection, is that correct? Well, what do you want us to do, sir?" And then what they did, they stuck a sign on the badly written with spelling mistakes. Please remove soiled laundry, and from the floor. So I said, well, you shouldn't need to tell the person that. I said, surely the word should be, if somebody that's going around cleaning does not remove that from the floor, there should be a very simple sentence: "You're fired. Get out." Mm-hmm. We get someone that can do it.
Yeah. And
they said, "Oh, we can't do that." Oh, and they just have this dumbness. "What do you want us to do, sir? How can we please you? We're here for, of course, customers. Or what can we do for customer service?" It was just bullshit all the time. And then eventually they wear you down to a point of dumbness where you just can't get through. You just literally can't get through. And I don't know how I kept it's for other people to judge, but I think I'm a pretty calm person. I don't know how I kept my calm and kept my cool. And they've got signs everywhere. "We do not accept aggressive behaviour. We don't." Well, no wonder they're like that. This is why they have these signs up. They just have this kind of dumbness, which I think is in their training. And they're supposed to be professionals.
I don't think they're bad people. I have to say, my experience of them is that they're all pretty good and they're doing the best that they can. But the system within which they work is turning them into... they're not assertive. They daren't assert.
Unquestioning rule followers.
Yeah, they are. And it's because they've gone into a place that's the culture that's being developed. So, and it's not so much that we can blame computers, but computers and the systemization of things and the centralization of control have brought this about. They're all conforming to a similar system. And the system architects want them to do that. And there's no feedback as to whether it's actually really human or kindly or fun. I mentioned when I was down there that I said to them, it was so warm in there. I said, "Are you trying to bake these people to death? What's going on?" They said, "Oh, they need to be warm." I said, "This is not warm. This is ridiculous. This is just foolish." They actually all wanted cold air at one point. What do I know about temperature? Well, quite a bit, actually. As you can tell from the opening shots of this show, it's always about the bloody weather. But I think... there's so many aspects of it that just build up. Let's try and finish these little things up because we're nearly at the top of the hour. We're nearly at the top of the hour. I just wonder we might carry through. Anyway, we kind of moved on to that from 13,000 more police officers. So, yeah, that's going to solve things, isn't it? What's the wage packet for that then? 13,000 times 30 grand a year. What's that? 13 times, it's 390 million a year, is it, or something? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's even more than that. Quite a bit. That's going to save us a lot of money. Number 5, this is sinister. Seriously, making sure 3/4 of 5-year-olds are school ready.
5-year-olds?
5-year-olds. Making
We
sure.
take your
We've got to
children.
make sure. How do we know we're sure? Or we'll make sure of that. It's just piffle language. Make sure 3/4 of 5-year-olds are school ready. Wow. Why would? How about making sure that all 5-year-olds don't go to school ever? How about that one? That
That's
might
the
help.
idea.
Well, let's put it in a clear language. Make sure that 5-year-olds are prepared to be taken away from their parents and locked in a very negative environment while they desire to be with their parents.
Yeah.
Mandatory testing.
Mandatory
What's that
testing.
called? Mandatory, yeah. The whole thing, the testing is BS bunk.
Yeah.
If ever there were anything.
The last one we might have to come back to a bit
Early
later.
indoctrination.
This is a good topic, actually, and I'm sorry. We're just going to. I'm going to play a song now because Dave Gahary has just arrived in the studio, so he can hear me. I'm going to bring you in, Dave, after this break. We're going to go to a song. The last point, by the way, was 95% clean power by 2030. These guys are geniuses. We're going to. Yeah, just wow.
Oh my God.
So basically, 0 for 6, everything's stupid, and just reverse all of it, and we'll actually have things working. So we don't want any 5-year-olds school ready at all. They shouldn't be going to nurseries or anything. They should be with their mothers, having fun, climbing trees, and setting fire to public buildings, which is what I did. We don't want any clean power because there isn't any power in it because it's rubbish. We don't need more police officers because we haven't got any already because all their arms are like pipe cleaners and they're pathetic. 92% of NHS patients within 18 weeks, forget it, because the NHS needs to be turned into a sensible organisation once more. 1.5 million homes is not enough, so that's a joke because they keep letting people in, so we need probably like 15 million a year at this rate. And putting more money in the pockets of working people is better served by extracting all the money from the pockets of the central bankers. And there we go. Right. Okay, we're at the top of the hour, just past. I'm going to play a little song, and then we're going to bring on our guest. Dave Gahary is going to join us for the second hour. And if I can just find the button that plays the music, and I can, here we go. This is, I might have played this a few weeks back. This is Lonesome Whistle by Little Feat.
I was riding number 9, headed south toward Carolina. I heard that long lonesome whistle blow. I got in trouble, I had to roam. Left my gal and I left my home. I heard that long lonesome whistle blow. Just a kid, acting smart. I went and broke my darling heart. I guess I was too young to know. They took me off the Jordan main, like me true and all that chain. I heard that long lonesome all alone, I'll bear the shame. I'm a number, not a name. I heard that low, I've been locked here in the cell till my body's just a shell. I heard that long whistle blow. Just a kid, acting smart. I went and broke my darling heart. I guess I was too young to know. I never sleep
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions, and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners, and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
Yeah, thank you for listening. We're here on WBN 324 every Thursday. Welcome back to part two, just sort of 5 past the hour. And those of you that were aware of the little notice for the show will be aware that we have a guest lined up, a returning guest, actually, and a good old pal, Dave Gahary. Dave, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm okay, Paul. How are you doing, my friend?
Not too bad. We've had a kind of offbeat first hour where we've been looking at certain sort of current things, but obviously the reason for having you on today was the notice you sent me yesterday and the sad event of the passing of our dear friend Michael Thomas Goodrich, and that's obviously why you're here, and we're here to impart not just feel bad about that or whatever, however people may feel about it and sad about it, because it is a sad event, is a great loss, but also I guess really to look at the positives that Tom brought to all of us. And I was keen obviously to hear, you mentioned to me when you brought it that you'd been kind of in touch and had much more of a sort of finger on the pulse of things over the past few weeks with regards to him. So I thought it might be useful, particularly as you and I had many sort of conference calls with Tom over the past few years, to just get it from your point of view, what's kind of been going on with him over these past couple of months.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult, really, because you and I and Tom had been through a lot over the years and spent some wonderful times together on conference calls. And as you said, now he's no longer with us. And as you know, he had a stroke last year, and he had recovered almost fully. And then just a couple of weeks ago, he apparently had another one. And I, of course, knowing Tom and knowing his wife, Michelle, we stayed in touch, of course, as you have with Tommy. And Michelle had written to me, I'll read it and I'll tell you the date that it started. It's been going on, for all of November. Actually, even in November. I mean, even October. Yeah. I'm seeing it. Okay, so, and I didn't want to, really get anybody involved in it because it was up and down. This was October 29, where Michelle texted me and said, "Hi, Dave, just want to let you know that Tom had another stroke while in the hospital for COVID. He has lost his ability to form words other than yes or no. Mm-hmm. He is in ICU. He has some difficulty following commands. They may opt to operate on the artery in his neck to remove the clot that is there. I will keep you posted on his progress." And I said, my reply was shit. Yep. And she said, yeah. I said, COVID? I said, that shit's still around? She said, yes, we both got it, and it knocked us on our butts. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, how do you feel now, with the COVID? Mm-hmm. She said, I'm pretty much over it. It was a combination of the flu and a cold, But for Tom, it caused his muscles to stop working and get really weak. That's why he ended up at the hospital. He was stuck on the floor and couldn't even raise himself up on his arms.
Right.
So they admitted him, did some rehab for 4 days, then transferred him to inpatient rehab. Things were okay for about 2 days. Then his brain shut down. And of course, I replied with, shit. What else am I going to say?
I know.
And she said he couldn't stand today. So they used a hoist thing to raise him up, to straighten the pad on his chair. He can't say his name at all. He gets a what the hell look on his face. So I know he's aware of the problem.
Yeah.
I said, can they fix it? He said they aren't sure. Said it might be permanent. Again, I replied with my usual shit. And then October 30th, the next day, I asked her how he was. He's doing better today. Communicating a little better. Doesn't need ICU now. So they're waiting for a regular room. They plan to do neck surgery this week or next week on the blocked artery. I said, beautiful. Please tell him we love him. Sure
Yes.
will. The next day, Halloween. Hi, I said, hi. Hi, Dave. Tom is about the same. Maybe a couple extra words, but he will have the surgery Monday. I don't know the long-term outlook. Hopefully he will at least be ambulatory. Speech therapy should help. I said, poor guy. I guess he can't take calls. She said, no. Once he's back to rehab, maybe, he can really only listen. I said, right.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a mess. I said, how are you holding up? She said, I'm okay. It's a waiting game. I said, yeah, if I can do anything. She said, thank you, Dave. Next day, November 1, how are you guys doing? She said, I didn't go to the hospital today. I called and he's still about the same. He can get to the bathroom with 2 people. Going to visit him tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have a positive report. I said, awesome. And she gave a report. I don't know if you know any of this, Paul.
No, I don't.
Listener. Okay. So I figured you would want to know because you were very close with Tom.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people cared for him and still care for him. Visited Tom today. This is November 2 for about 3 hours. He's improving more and more. The nurse got him out of his chair and he made it to the bathroom and back with the walker, saying some short sentences. I took him 2 milkshakes from Culver's. He drank them both. He watches the History Channel all day, which is good. I offered to call you, but he seemed a bit apprehensive about talking. Probably embarrassed.
Yes.
But he definitely understands everything that is said. I said, that is great. You made my year. He'll be home soon. November 4, how's things? He had surgery today on carotid artery. Went well. He's in ICU for 24 hours. He will probably be back to square one with the speech, but he will get therapy. I said, awesome. November 5, so a month ago.
Yep.
How's the big boy? I didn't go to see him today since he was to be in ICU till a regular room was ready, and I had a migraine all day. I spoke with the nurse. She said he was able to say okay, but nothing else. His surgeon told me yesterday that this would happen and therapy will be helpful. He's getting fluids right now, and tomorrow they will do a swallow video and with barium to make sure he doesn't aspirate it. I plan to go tomorrow. I'm apprehensive about what I will find. So I had one of those swallow tests when I was with COVID. And
Yes.
Fortunately, I passed it. I said, sounds like good news. I hope you feel better. She said, thanks. I do already. I said, that's good. He's in a regular room now. She said he's talking a bit more, and they walked him to the bathroom. Also sat in a chair for a while today. I said, beautiful. Thanks for the update. You're welcome. Next day, November 6th, he failed the swallow test. So they will put a feeding tube in his nose for nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be transferred back to rehab on Friday. They will retest the swallow in a week. I said, that's crazy. She said, yeah. I said, I remember taking that. Better safe than sorry, for sure. Thanks for the update. You're welcome. Please tell him we love him. I will. Made me smile. Then I put a smiley face.
Nice.
November 7th, Tom is holding his own. Still lots of mucus to cough up. Not saying much, just a yes or no. Mostly head shake or nod. Feeding tube working out just fine. He doesn't really interact with me much, but he does respond well to the nurses, which is great. They treat him like he's family.
Nice.
Being transferred to rehab hospital later in the day tomorrow. Swelling under his chin has gone down considerably. Slow and steady wins a race. I said, yes, thanks. November 8th, any better today? He's better in the mornings, just has a lot of mucus in his lungs. He rattles a lot when he breathes. His answers are only yes or no, but he is fully aware of what's being said. He's back at the rehab hospital now, where they will make him work to get better. I said, how long do they think he will be there? They didn't say. My guess is at least 10 days to 2 weeks. When I was in rehab, I was there for 20 days.
Yes, I remember that.
He can't really walk at all, other than a few teeny tiny baby shuffles for a few seconds to move from chair to bed with two people helping. I said, right, I was there for 20 days. I remember. That was awful, I'm sure. Horrible. And then I wanted to give her a laugh. I said, ready for a laugh? She said, yep, exclamation mark. I sent her this joke. Somebody, I can't remember where I got it from. A guy says, I was at the Barnes & Noble earlier, and I asked the clerk if they had Donald Trump's new book on how to deport illegal immigrants. The clerk immediately said to me, get the fuck out of here and don't come back. I said, yeah, that's the one. Do you have it in paperback? She got a kick out of it.
Yeah, I get a kick out of that too. That's good.
Right.
We must get that book, everyone. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to get the real thing soon. Next month. November 9, Saturday. Tom pulled his feeding tube out this morning. She put a new one in. They asked about the thick mucus that he's coughing up, and it was like that before. I told him yes. She said, and they said he was okay to come back to rehab. I said, yes. So they're going to x-ray his chest and rule out pneumonia or bronchitis. They have to use an outside company because they don't have the machine there since they're just rehab. She said he's having problems communicating. I told her he seemed to have a disconnect somewhere and just doesn't understand not to pull out the tube when he blows his nose. We had to watch him pretty closely for that. She agreed that there's definitely a disconnect. I plan to go tomorrow. He had 2 hours of rehab today, then went to sleep. I'm trying to remain optimistic. I'm anxious for them to aggressively address the congestion. It's really terrible. Every breath is hampered by the mucus. I went through that same thing too.
Yeah.
He did enjoy seeing the dogs yesterday. They allowed them in his room. But he's definitely got some mental deficits. I'm really concerned. I think he will improve when his lungs clear up. Also, the neck swelling is an issue. I wish this was a Happy Clouds update. I said, shit, I had a lot of mucus too. It is really annoying. I'm sure it is. He doesn't understand that he needs to cough, but maybe with the swelling, it's a bit painful. I said that would make sense. Next day, November 10. So Tom has pneumonia. The hospital actually sent him back to rehab with it. He's on antibiotics and nebulizer. I can tell you that he is 100% better today than he was 2 days ago. He can finally breathe without the rattles. And his spirits are up too. He was able to walk to the bathroom with a walker and a little help. Way better and faster than Friday. So he seems to be on the mend. Not talking yet other than yes, no. I said, that is great. You made my weekend and more. November 13, how's it going? He keeps pulling out his feeding tube. Tomorrow, he gets an ultrasound of his carotid artery to see how it's doing. His brain just doesn't comprehend that tube in his nose. There's a disconnect there somewhere. I know he's not pulling it out to be obstinate. That's just not how he is. He's very compliant and willing. So something isn't getting through. Hopefully it will improve in time. I said, thanks, Michelle. I said, where is his feeding tube in his side? Because she did say earlier it was in his nose, but I didn't know if it was still there. She said, nose. I said, it must bother him. I'm sure it does, poor guy. I said, yeah, he'll get there. November 16, how's our boy? Able to talk more. Limited walking, 10 steps. Still congested, but not as bad. Mentally seems pretty good. Takes extra time for certain tasks. Supposed to be discharged December 1. Cannot be left alone due to fall risk. Hopefully that will get better. I have to get him a wheelchair, walker, shower chair, bed rails. I have an appointment with Aging and Disability Resource Center on Monday. Going to try to get someone to come and stay with him a couple hours a week so I can shop, etc. Doctor said the most improvement happens in the first 3 months after stroke. So I think he might get back most of what he lost, but I absolutely don't want him in a nursing home. Thank you for asking. We love you too. I said, that is great news. We love you back. November 20, Wednesday. Since he didn't pass the second swallow study, he's going to surgery tomorrow morning to get the stomach tube. I had one of those. He is talking so much better and walking better with the walker. I said, thank goodness. You think he can talk on the phone tomorrow? November 21, Thursday. Oh, I don't think so. Maybe after he gets home. He still has difficulty finding words. He's just beginning to form short sentences. Yesterday, he told the speech therapist that there was an alligator by the pool. She asked him, where are we? He said, Florida. Remember, they lived in Florida, Paul.
Yep, I remember
before they moved up to Wisconsin, right?
Yep.
And he absolutely hated the heat. And he got the reverse, and he got the cold up there.
Yep.
She told him to look out the window at the trees, then asked if they looked like palm trees. He said, no. You know, the way he would say it, right?
Yes.
But he didn't know we are in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He doesn't know the month or day. He's still a bit disconnected. But it's better than it was. I do ask him if he wants to talk to his son or you. He doesn't answer. It's pretty sad. I'm just hoping he doesn't pull the stomach tube out. He just doesn't grasp things like that, or to not get out of bed without help. I said, yeah, I was worried about the tube too. I said, will he know it's his birthday today? So is his son, Clipper. Kind of freaks me out just imagining it. But with a blinder over it and a t-shirt and hoodie, maybe it will be okay. He really only responds about it if asked. But time has no meaning to him right now. He just wants them to stop bothering him early in the morning. And I know he's not happy that women are messing with his naked body when he showers or goes to the bathroom. They do keep reminding him that it's his birthday today. They did 2 days ago, so I'm sure they will be doing that today. I wish I had insight as to how this is going to play out. I said, when I came to and got disgusted about how they would come in every hour and wake me up, I got the doctor to reduce it to 2 times a day. I needed my sleep, which they were preventing with their constant vital signs checks. I wish he was able to verbalize that, but since it's a rehab hospital and he's got a lot of confusion, they would ignore that wish. Now they'll be coming in to feed him. I said, you could tell them. She said, I will ask about it. He will probably have to be watched closely for a while because of his feeding tube. This is still his birthday, Thursday, November 21.
Right.
Had the birthday boy do. Okay, surgery went fine. Got back to the rehab. Some bleeding at the tube site. A little more than they expected, but they weren't worried. I was internally freaking out. But while the nurse was putting information into the computer, she was right in the room. He reached under the sheet and was going to mess with the tube. I said, don't touch that. So I wrapped that arm in a blanket above the sheet he was under. I told the other nurse that came in that he's already messing around with it. She said, oh, I can fix that, and left. I had to leave, so I don't know what her fix was. It's so frustrating for him. He's able to speak, although a bit hard to understand, but in full sentences. 1 minute, I think he's with it. The next minute, he doesn't understand why I leave and where I go. He said it's like he's in a maze. He's breaking my heart. I asked if he wanted to talk to you, and he thought about it for a long while, then shook his head no. I said, maybe when you come home? He said, yes. I think he's embarrassed that he can't speak well. He didn't want to talk to his son either. He doesn't grasp the seriousness of his situation at all. I explained repeatedly that he will die without the feeding tube, but I know it doesn't register. Training for me on the tube use and care is Monday and Tuesday, 4 hours each.
Wow.
I'm really excited for him to come home, but very, very apprehensive. Thanks for listening. I said, oh boy, thanks for sharing. The delusion is common. He will snap out of it soon. 4 hours each? What? Are they going to teach you how to operate? I said, it's not that hard. I said, I hope you're right on both counts. I said, I do too. I said, a birthday to remember. Indeed, for all the wrong reasons. I said, it has to get better. Next day, November 22nd. Any news? I'm sorry, I got busy cooking for my granddaughter's birthday. I meant to text you earlier. He's doing better, tolerating his liquid meals. He's a bit less confused and is more conversational. Great. And I said, happy birthday to her granddaughter. Next day, November 23rd, Saturday. Tom is improving nicely. Nurses are amazed. You see, Paul, that's why I said it was so up and down.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Still a bit confused, especially about why he's there.
Mhm.
He's not bothering the feeding tube at all. Wow. I told you the fog lifted. Monday, November 25. Tom's doing better. They started giving him a Parkinson's medicine. And she named it. I can't pronounce it. It might help with movement and speech. He had it after the first stroke, and it helped a lot. He still doesn't know why he's there. I noticed he can't remember things short term, like 5 seconds. Hopefully, time will make the difference. It's mostly instructions that he struggles with. He asked if we could stop and get something to eat on the way home. He's really hungry. He gets a feeding 4 times a day, and he desperately wants a drink of water. I will have to watch him very closely at home. I hope he will eventually be able to access and navigate his accounts. Otherwise, I have to make a plan B that doesn't include me, because obviously, we all have our own, right? Whatever it is, accounts. And if that information isn't passed on, then what, right? Those big tech companies aren't going to help you.
No.
So the hunger and the thirst, I went through that horribly. So these feeding tubes, even though they supposedly give you a lot of calories, it's just not like real food. And I said, he's home? She said, no, he thought he was coming home with me. I said, I had the tube and still needed more. I munched on a lot of ice. I said, when did they say he'll be able to drink water? After they do another swallow study. They just called me now. They think he might be having another stroke. They're sending him by ambulance to the hospital next door. He's stuck on the toilet. Rescue is on the way. I said, shit, anything? And I was checking in later. No. So they called and said he seems like he's back to baseline and they're keeping him for observation. We'll do an MRI to see what's going on. I plan to go tomorrow. I will let you know how he is. Thanks, Michelle. You're welcome. Tuesday, November 26th. Can I call you to say hello to Tom? Of course. So I called. And he didn't, it was very low.
Yep.
And you could barely make out what he was saying. But I guess that was a huge improvement over what it was before.
Yes.
So I said, that was a treat. She said, I know, for me too. That's the dopamine meds. 1 dose yesterday. Wow. That evening, no sign of stroke on MRI. They're going to decide tomorrow when he will return to rehab. Awesome. Thanks for the update. You bet. November 27, Wednesday. Doing good today. Going back to rehab today at 3. Great. And then, of course, the 28th was Thanksgiving, Thursday. And I sent her a picture of our Thanksgiving dinner. She said, beautiful. I said, happy Thanksgiving. Same to you guys. I said, here, let me get to here. Saturday. So today is Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So today is Thursday the 5th, and Saturday was the 30th, the last day of November. Tom is doing okay, getting physically stronger, not very conversational, slow to respond. I'm hoping it improves when he's home. Not bothering the feeding tube. Thank the Lord. That's great news. That is great news. Thanks for the update, Michelle. You're welcome. Monday, I signed on to the computer, turned my cell phone on, and Michelle, please call me when you have a chance. This was like 6 something in the morning.
Right.
I said, now? She said, yes. And she was not handling it very well. It didn't look good.
No.
And so that was Monday, early in the morning. And then about 4 hours later, the next text, his lungs are improving and don't need as much help as before. Blood pressure's still low. They're going to try and wake him up later and take the breathing tube out. I said, thank God. She said, I know. So many people praying for him.
Yes.
I said, I was so distraught, after talking to her. She said, oh, I know you were. Anytime they swab his mouth, he bites the swab. He's still feisty because they swab the mouth with moisture, right?
Yeah.
He closes his finger around my hand Good sign. Wonderful. So this is still Monday. You betcha. Monday, right before 6 p.m. Anything? When I left, I asked if they were going to wake him up, but his nurse, a nice young man, said he would rather wait another day because sometimes if you wake them up too soon, you may not be able to achieve the same level of comfort if you have to sedate them again. His son should be there by 7:30. I will talk to him tonight. I said, that's good. He needs his rest. Yes, so his body can recover. So I said, nothing like reinforcements. She said, I know. Tuesday. Today's Thursday, right? So 2 days ago.
Yep.
In the evening or close to it. I would call you, but I just can't. Maybe tomorrow. We transitioned Tom to hospice. Off ventilator. Off all drugs. Off feeding tube and fluids. He has a morphine drip. He's breathing on his own, resting comfortably. But he will not allow suctioning. He clamps his lips shut. He opened his eyes a few times and made eye contact with his son, but wasn't able to respond to hand squeezing. We left at 3. He was sleeping. His son is going back there tonight, then back to Kansas tomorrow morning. I will go home tomorrow and spend the day. Not sure how long this will take. He specifically stated on his POA form that he did not want any extra measures to prolong his dying. All the above were listed on the form, and he checked the box. This was 2 years ago when he still had it together. I'm really sorry for the loss of your friend. Much love. He would have needed to be in a skilled nursing home, which would have been a living hell for him.
It would.
And he is still aspirant, his secretions, so he would have frequent bouts of aspiration pneumonia and more ICU. I just couldn't do that to him. And I, of course, said, shit. She said, yeah. I said, how is he now? When we left, he was resting. There's nothing to be done. He's not fixable. I said, how long do they give him? She said, they don't know how long it will take. I would say a couple of days at the most. I will stay with him till the end. I said, I'm so sorry, Michelle. Please kiss him for us.
Yes.
She said, yes, I know it's awful. I will. I said, thanks for keeping me posted. And yesterday morning, Tom passed away this morning at 4:50. So 4:50 Central Time. So that's 10:50 your time. I said, so sorry, Michelle. I said, I think he knew. Yes, and it's weird. I woke up at 4 with a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. Thank you, Dave. He's at peace. We can say that for sure, I said. His son still there? No, he stayed with him until very late last night. He left the hotel early this morning. I said, were they close? She said, yes. Will you have any services? His son will have a memorial service in Kansas at some point. He may spread his ashes on one of his favorite battlefields. I said, that's nice.
Yes, that
I said,
is nice.
I said, love you and Tommy. She said, Tom was a no-frills guy. She said, we love you too. That's it. I mean, there's other texts, but that's it.
Well, that was wonderful for you to read that out.
I wanted
Really?
to for you.
Yeah. I think for anybody that knew him, that's quite a thing.
Yeah.
I've got this stuff swirling around me in so many different areas, but for Tom, when you sent me the message, I wasn't surprised, but I was saddened. Because it's a strange thing to make friendship with people that you never physically meet in real life. Still haven't met you yet, but I never met Tom, but I did really meet him full on, up and down the conversations that we had over those years. And as I was saying earlier, he was more diffident than most Englishmen. He was so modest and so quick to put himself down. It was almost embarrassing sometimes talking to him. He was almost fully unaware of what he'd done for so many, I guess, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who've read his stuff. And he wasn't aware of the impact of it. And the impact of what you've just said has really hit home as well. So it was fantastic for you to go through that.
Of course, yeah, I wanted to. I, of course, forgot a lot of the details, but I did know it was an up and down thing. And, it just sucks, especially somebody like him.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did. And I want to talk about that briefly. I sent you a link here. Jack, a listener from Lancashire.
Jack. I know Jack. Jack's
Yeah.
sometimes called in here. Lovely guy.
Yes, great guy.
Great guy.
And Jack sent an email
Mm-hmm.
and said, hey Dave, my condolences. When you're on with Paul later on, I thought with Tom's passing, a fitting piece of music might be Now We Are Free from Gladiator. He was a great man. Cheers, Jack. And I don't know if you'd want to play that,
Oh, I think we can find that.
but I sent it to you.
If I can find it, we can play
No, I
it.
sent it to you in
Oh, did you? In Skype?
I sent it to you in Telegram. Yeah.
All right, in Telegram.
No, Telegram. You want me to
All
send it in Skype?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I've got it here. That's cool.
And I never heard the song, so I don't know what it sounds like.
It doesn't matter. If Tom would have loved it and Jack wants it, this is great. It will be good. I know the music from this film is good and it is appropriate for him. Let me just make sure that we don't start this off rough. Now would be a bad time to get all the buttons wrong, wouldn't it? We don't want to do that. Let me just bring this up. And then we can talk a bit about him after this. So this is for Tom Goodrich, who has left the building, as they say, modern parlance, but has left us here. 77 years of age, just had his birthday last week, whose contribution to this space, this information quest, whatever you want to call it, is immense, absolutely immense. And let me just get this right here. So this is for Tom.
Changing the orthotics landscape right.
for Tom. That was for Tom Goodrich, who shuffled off this mortal coil yesterday, November the 4th, 2024. Dave, that was a great report. And Jack, thank you very much for recommending that piece of music. I think it was very apt, and I think Tom would have loved it.
Absolutely. I'm glad that we could do this. And as I said, I wanted to share that with you. And I did read those texts, but not in their entirety all at once. So it definitely was an up and down episode that Michelle went through with Tom, and that Tom went through.
Yeah.
And that, of course, I went through and my wife went through. something similar. But yes, he's at peace now, and we can never be thankful enough, as you said, for his contribution to this space. And I guess this space is, as Tom tried to do, as he did, getting a version of information out that wasn't officially sanctioned. And I think that's what really got him going. Was he always questioned, he told me this, he always questioned things that he was never getting the answers he sought from the controlled, corporate captured media. And he took matters into his own hands, and he dug into these topics. And of course, he was a very prolific author. He's written, I think, over 20 books. And his most memorable, of course, as you are acutely aware, Paul, is Hellstorm, The Death of Nazi Germany, 1944 to 1947. And of course, you did the audiobook for that, which was very difficult. And I was on a show earlier, and I said, reading the book is hard enough, but reading it out loud, verbalizing those words, must have been an incredible task. I know that I've talked to many folks who have had Hellstorm, the book, who have never finished it because it's so hard to read. And if you look at what Tom had to say about it when he was here, if you go to the Money Tree Publishing website and look at that entry,
yeah,
I'll put it in there for you. If you look at that, you'll see Tom signing his books at our dining room table, and he looks great.
He does. He looks fantastic.
Yeah. And he wrote, since this book was first published in 2010, dreadful has been the word most used to describe it. I've come to accept the verdict. World War II is our most hate-filled, dreadful war. The research and writing of the book changed my life forever. Just as I assume the reading of Same will change how others view for all times the world about them. And Hellstorm is not, as you've said and I've said many times, it's not the type of book that you hand to somebody and say, enjoy the book.
No.
You're not going to enjoy it in that sense.
You're not.
And yeah, and reading it, that's what I was getting to. Reading it must have been almost insane having to verbalize it.
Well, as you were just running through all those wonderful messages and that exchange that you had there with Michelle, and you got me, as it were, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to feel this way during the show, but then that's how it always works, isn't it? But it reminded me of the period when I was doing it. And it is a terrible book, is what I always used to chuckle about with Tom and tell him that he'd written the most terrible book ever. And it is dreadful. It really is. And I was mentioning earlier on that although you would not necessarily give it to people for a positive reading experience, my view is that the vast majority of our people who can read need to read it. Because it is one of those books, there's not many in your life probably that you will read that you will never forget. And the way I feel now is when I read it the first time, Tom kindly sent me a copy. or I bought. I contacted him in 2014. This is really before I got to know you more fully, and he sent me a lovely little note on the book, and he said, I've got about 5 or 6 copies left, and I'll send you it. So he personally organised the delivery of the book to me. I don't know quite how I got in touch with him, maybe through his website at the time. And I was reading it in the summer/autumn of 2014, and I had to stop because I got like this a lot. So if you're uncomfortable with that, and we all are, you probably don't want to read it, but you probably therefore do. Because if you want to know what hell is like, that book is going to take you there. You need to see it. You need to experience what human beings are capable of when they're whipped into a frenzy to do the most disgusting, reckless, evil, foul things you could possibly imagine. And for Tom to have the mettle, as it were, to hold his composure whilst putting this down, that is an incredible feat. And so I've read many books, and they've all got their qualities, around this period of history. And of course, there are the kind of colder books which look at the military stuff and these things, and they are important in their own light. But this is about the heart, the sort of spiritual war that's at the very heart of that whole thing. And Europeans need to read it. Wherever you are in the world, if you're a European, you know what I mean. You will be better for reading it, even though it will be an ordeal to read it. And of course, this sounds like we're hamming it up and amplifying it, but I've not had a response from anybody that contradicts that kind of assessment. It's very close to what you were saying, Dave, and it is tough, and it takes a lot of deep breaths, and you have to walk off to regain one's composure and try and keep a stiff upper lip, because we've got to get through this. And it's not dreadful all the way through, but you know what's coming as you go through it. And Tom's out of the wayness as a writer, because he didn't have an ego, didn't Tom? Not that I noticed.
That's right, he didn't.
He was a servant to the truth, and that's why it's so powerful. And so it's not full of the bombast and the big publishing event and all this, that, and the other. It's raw, and you will feel that rawness. And when you discover, which you will through this book probably more fully than any other, the true context for that conflict and how it was conducted, you will know what we are up against. You will know it. You will know intimately in your guts what we're up against. And I think therefore it's good service to everybody to know it.
What's the title of the book again, Paul?
It's very simple. It's Hellstorm. One word. Hellstorm.
Yep. And is the subtitle, was it 1944?
The Death of Nazi Germany, 1944 to 1947.
So the end of the war. This is describing what took place after the war was.
This is correct. You will in simple numerical terms, more Germans were killed immediately after the war up to 1947 than between 1939 and 1945. Let that sink in.
Where can we find a copy?
You can go to the publisher's website, and the publisher's here with us right now doing a magnificent job, Dave. I can't thank you enough for what you just went through there. Moneytreepublishing.com. And
very good.
You might want to read it, because then you can go at your own pace and you can close it when it gets a bit too much. Because I suspect you'll need to. I did. And so it's quite a thing. It's quite a unique book in that regard, I think. There may be other things that are closer to it. I've not stumbled across them yet, and I'm not necessarily looking. But in terms of the way that Tom deals with it, absolutely amazing. It's an amazing book, because he was an amazing guy to get himself out of the way and write such dreadful things about such dreadful, terrible things, really.
Yeah.
So
WBN will be leaving us here shortly.
They will. You're very good. Actually, isn't that good? They are. We're going to be leaving WBN. So listen, this has been quite a different show up to now. We're going to carry on Rumble, because we've just been this show on WBN is billed as a look at the dark side of history, and we've really touched upon it here and brought it, I think, emotionally into the space with the passing of Tom. We're going to be back again same time next week on WBN. We're carrying on right now on Rumble. So if you want to carry on listening to the show and pass comments and interact with us, you can even call in. We're available to do that. But we'll be back again here same time next week. I haven't even had a chance to load up any music for this, so we're just going to drift out nicely. We'll be here at 3 p.m. US Eastern next Thursday with a show of probably a slightly different tone to this one. And but we're carrying on right now on Rumble. So keep good in the interim, and we'll be back with you, as I said, 3 p.m. US Eastern next week, 8 p.m. in the UK. Keep good. Bye for now. And we are clear. So we are clear. We're now on our own on Rumble. So and everybody's still here. Marvelous. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just amazed at the whole thing. I wish I had a chance to have talked with him. I enjoyed his stories that he would tell. I would listen to them on Speak Free Radio. They would have little snippets of him telling a story, and he's just a natural storyteller. And just by judging by those little short vignettes that he would present about the Wild West with cowboys and Indians and that sort of thing here in America. His American history is just as good as his European history in that regard. And I really do need to read his earlier works and Hellstorm and get a better understanding. I remember hearing him first on Jeff Rentz back in like 2014, 2015 in interviews there. And just the gravity of the subject matter and what brutal things took place and how he made a distinction. I had just recently heard him on Kevin Barrett's show on Truth Jihad. It might have been an old recording that was played, but he was talking about how it wasn't always the active duty, the people on the front lines, the soldiers on the front lines causing these problems, but more the supply line type soldiers in the back after the fact of these prisoners of war being caught and just the brutal things they would do to people, thinking that they had the authority of life and death over these people, these poor people that had no food, no shelter, laid out in fields to die like flies. It's just terrible. And especially when you start learning things about the Rhine Meadows camp and Eisenhower and just the cold nature of how they treated the German troops and the men and women and just it's hell. Like it's an appropriate title, Hellstorm.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's I mean, maybe I'll read it one more time before I join Tom. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I don't think so. I might just go in and read certain chapters every now and again. But yeah, it's much worser than people know of. But it won't be after you've read Hellstorm. And I did several shows with him afterwards. We would do things. I don't know when I did the last one with him. I probably did one with him about 2017. Dave, we were on with Tom once with Mark Collett, were we not? I think on Patriotic Alternative a few years back.
Yes, I think so.
That went well, and that's where we bumped into Aunt Sally, who's here in the chat room. Aunt Sally probably remembers that. That was a really good show. So Tom was quite reticent about doing shows, and he used to get all these offers to do shows, and he'd call me up. He said, "Can you do it?" I said, "But I'm not the author." He said, "Well, you read the book." I said, "It's hardly the same thing." He said, "Can you do most of the talking?" I said, "Well, I can always do most of the talking." I said, "But I don't think they want that either." He's just a wonderful guy. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody that met him, probably over the telephone lines, over the internet, I don't know how many people he met face to face, but if you connected with him in communication and just had a conversation with him, he was like the sort of guy that you could just sit with at a bar and probably talk with all night about everything. And you're right, Patrick, those little vignettes he did for Speak Free Radio, which of course got played almost to death. So I think in due course they were kind of taking out people. I remember getting one comment, "Who's that crotchety old man whinging about things?" I said, I'm going, that's one of my best mates, that is. So tough suffer. And he did have a kind of lugubrious sort of downside to him with these things. And he saw a lot of dark things all over the place. I guess it's not surprising, but he always brought a light touch to it, I thought. Very funny at times, some very funny stories. And he obviously had that raconteur's mind and the gathering up of these short anecdotal tales that he would tell. So I'll miss that. I mean, I'm saying I'll miss it. I've obviously not had too much communication with him over the past 2 years. I think it's about 2 years, Dave, isn't it, since he had the first stroke? It's about 2 years.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, when you and I would talk to him, he was so negative about doing things. And we used to say, he'd go, I can't talk. I'm going, Tom, you're talking.
Yeah.
He goes, but I can't even string sentences. I said, that was a sentence. It sounds fine to me.
I know. I know.
He was so funny like that, but I can't do anything. I said, but you just did this. This is great. There's no difference. He said, is there? He'd really got, you know, he was, I think I understand it. He was very disappointed, I think, that he'd had a stroke. It's male pride. Understandable. It's not a good or a bad thing. It just happens. And I can understand how he sort of behaved at the end. I mean, strokes do funny sorts of things. I wasn't fully aware of all this, but, you know, the operation of the throat is one of the first things to go. And you think, well, that's not a big deal. And then you go, oh, hang on just a minute. You can't eat properly. And then suddenly it's an enormous deal. So it's just a big, tricky, sort of irritating thing. You go, well, it's just get this little bit working. We can recover. Yeah, but you can't get that little bit working. So.
No, the last time we spoke, besides that short time that I read about, was in September.
Right.
It looks like. And we had a nice conversation. He sounded really good. And it looks like we spoke in June before that for about an hour, and he was fine. He sounded great. He sounded really great. But of course, like you said, always self-deprecating. So calling his mind mush. He told me in June. Yeah.
Yeah. My mind's mush.
Right. I have not driven a car for 2 years or a bike.
Oh, yeah. The bike. You've reminded me that he loved the bike, didn't he? He loved his bike. He was always talking about his bike, and he was right to talk about his bike. So he must have been on the bike up until about 2 or 3 years ago. It was the stroke that stopped it, wasn't it? Because he was out on the bike.
Yes, he was constantly on the bike. And his Tales of Tom, or whatever we called them.
That was it.
I loved them. Yeah,
they're great.
I loved them. Yeah, they were great.
They're funny too. His sense of humor is just I loved it. And then he would make something completely awful sound like it was just hilarious when you boiled it. He did.
I guess he studied so much awfulness. In the end, he began to see black humor and comedy and everything. And why not? You know, because you can't be. It's appropriate to feel these things, and you can't control those feelings, and that's really why they are what they are. But Tom has probably sat in so much darkness in his writing and everything that in the end he just did develop a very dry and black sense of humor, and it made
was lovable.
It was. He was lovable. He really was. Absolutely. He's the sort of guy you just want to sort of put your arm around and go, come on, and all that kind of stuff, because he's just really gentle guy, actually. That's what really...
very.
Yeah, very gentle.
Just like most folks, that's what I was saying. In this, whatever you want to call it, they're just nice guys. You know, Patrick, just a sweetheart of a guy. You, some people would say me, others wouldn't. Which I completely understand. Now. I got to be a prick sometimes. Right?
No.
Like when I'm copy editing material.
Yep.
So he was wonderful. I love him, and I know you guys love him, and I'm just glad he's not in pain anymore. And I'm glad Michelle, because I know what it did to my wife.
Yes.
That roller coaster. Because I was up and down as well, mostly down. But that's, you heard from what I read how it was one day, oh yeah, he's doing great.
Yep.
And I was like, damn, he's going to get out. Awesome. Can't wait to see him. And because he was supposed to work his way down here. I don't know if they were planning on leaving there and coming back to Florida. Of course, like I mentioned, the two extremes and, climate, environment, right?
It was a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a bit.
This was this Wisconsin weather didn't help his pneumonia. I'll put it that way, especially when it's teetering
Right.
on freezing. I just got through having pneumonia more or less the past 3 weeks. And
jeez.
I was bedridden for a whole week, and it's just like, oh, if I'm going to be off work, at least I want to do some fun stuff. I don't want to sit in bed.
Mhm.
And then the next week I was hacking up a lung, and it's terrible. And when you were telling the story about him having the rattle and mucus,
Yeah.
I'm like, it reminded me of my grandfather who lived with me for the last 10 years of his life. And at the end, he was about 94 a couple years ago. He was basically in that same situation, had a stroke and had mucus, and then they give him morphine, and the morphine is for the pain, but it just doesn't help his breathing whatsoever with mucus. It's like that's a deadly combination when you get morphine and mucus like that.
Oh, yes. Yes, and it seemed like that's what I wrote toward the end, that he knew and he wanted to go.
Yep.
And that's why he was clamping his mouth shut. He refused to get suctioned, and the suctioning was when I was in there, and when I came to after falling out toward the end of September. I came to, I think it was November 10. And then you're there you are, and you've got all this stuff that, you've got to everything shuts down. And that's why he couldn't do anything, because your body just shuts down completely, and you have to learn how to walk.
Yep.
You have to learn how to talk. When I woke up, and I've told this story before, but as it relates to Tom, I remember looking down at my hands and my arms, and they were gray and very thin, and they couldn't move. And so the only thing that could move was the head on my neck somehow. That didn't shut down. I don't know why. There must be some scientific reason, but having to learn that all over, and of course your lungs are shut down because I was on the ventilator. And when you realize that, you can't breathe on your own, and you've got all this mucus in you that, is building up, and no matter what, you can't get it out, and they have to suction it. And then, at least for me, I think it's similar for others who are in that same state. When you get to the point where you realize that you can't breathe on your own, you start to go through, these psychological attacks. And that's when they, as I was being tended to, I started to like freak out. And one of the doctors just happened to be walking in the hallway by the door, and he saw what I was doing, and he screamed out, air hunger. And as soon as he did that, then they gave me some morphine,
Right.
which I don't think it did much, but then they suggested shortly thereafter, I think he did, the doctor, to go on Xanax, which I've never been on any of those types of medication. And I talked to my wife about it, or communicated with her. I wasn't able to talk really because, I had that ventilator in there, and I could like whisper or use that gadget, that electronic gadget. And I said, I want to take that Xanax. I got to try it, because it was really, there was a lot of anxiety. I mean, it was just, and again, I've never experienced that, fortunately, in my life, but the Xanax helped. And then when I finally got out the next month, on December 30th of 2021, I was still on the Xanax, but I tapered it down and then eventually got off it entirely. But it absolutely did help. So I think what Tom was going through was something similar to that, and I may be wrong, of course, because I wasn't in his head, and neither was Michelle, but he probably realized that, and you could tell by what Michelle was saying, that he wasn't quite there. He didn't quite get it. There was a disconnect. He probably realized that it was not going in the right direction, and he didn't want to live anymore. That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the thing is like these basics that you just take for granted. They suddenly become the major challenge, like breathing, or that you're sat in bed all the time, so the fluid's not clearing from the lungs properly. Or if you can't walk, if you haven't got perambulation, as it were, things start to get clogged up. And anyway, on the positive, he made 77. I would have liked to see him made 88 and even 99, but there you go.
Exactly.
In the 77
Exactly.
years that he had, and certainly during his working life, he did more than most. Let's put it that way. That's an understatement.
And he left an indelible mark, as you said.
He did.
An indelible mark on this arena.
He did.
Forever to be remembered.
He will. That book has just gone all over the place. It's because of the intensity of it. It's unlike, it's, the most intense book I've read. So
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
It's in a league of its own, really, from that. Eric, yeah.
Dave, thank you very much for, well, you haven't spoken before, Dave, but
Yes,
thank you for a very moving tribute, because it was very similar to what happened to my father, and it brought it all back. And he went through very similar. He had a stroke as well. And the last time I saw him, he seemed to be perking up. And I think sometimes people choose when to die. My father chose a perfect time to die. When I say perfect, it was not that perfect, but when I left him hospital, I had a sixth sense that it would be the last time I'd see him. And then 6:30 next morning, I got the phone call that he'd passed away.
Right.
And it was really, I don't know, I just get a sixth sense. I don't know whether you got a sixth sense, Dave. Did you, when he was on his last?
No, I didn't. And of course I was limited as to what was happening via the texts, which are rather one-dimensional. So no, I didn't. Michelle did, as you heard. She woke up at 4 a.m. She got this terrible feeling. And
that's right. Well, I did. I mean, I was very, very close to my father, extremely close. We were great mates. He was my best friend as well as my dad. So,
that's awesome.
And at his funeral, I said, if I was half as brave as my father, I'd be extremely brave. And I think I'll give that a kind of like a verbal award most years. I think you can give awards to people without giving them something metallic or some object. I think you can say it verbally. And I think that, I'd like to extend that, because I've sort of verbally given that award, shall we say. It sounds a bit weird, I know. You give a verbal award to somebody, that if you're if I was half as brave as them, I'd be very brave. And I think that Hellstorm, the writing of it, etc., I think that probably comes into that. I think Tom Goodrich, he sounded like a very brave man to me. So 2025, I don't know what other people think. I think he might get that award for 2020. I think he should get the award for 2025. That because what he went through, and of course, writing a book like that goes against the tide, and that is always very, very difficult. It takes bravery to write that sort of book, because my dad, when he wrote his book, he was going against the tide. So it's thank you very much for a very fitting tribute, and as I say, it brought a lot back. I never spoke to Tom Goodrich. I wish I had done, but there it goes. But I've actually seen the film Hellstorm, and that's enough. It's very, very moving. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that.
With regard to the book, Dave, and his books, I guess they're going to stay in print, yeah?
Well, hell yeah. Hell yeah, of course.
Because you've got about 50 million copies to get printed and distributed across Europe and North America.
All the universities and schools.
Yeah, every library needs a copy. Yeah.
Well, we're going to get there, right? And, they took away our payment processor in September. So September 25, they took it away, and they do this occasionally.
Yes.
Whether it's one day or 3 days or 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 years, And of course, as you know, we run a tight ship, so we never have any chargebacks. We take care of the customer. We've never raised prices since January 2017, because we're not in it to make money. We're in it to get the word out. And they just see that, there's people interested in this stuff. And, as the meme goes, shut it down. Right. So they shut it down. And we still don't have a processor. We're trying to get another one, but there are other ways to do it. So folks can, especially folks, in Europe or Eurasia or anywhere outside the U.S. And I've been doing this lately because we can get them significantly reduced shipping rates. So just send an email from the website. Go to moneytreepublishing.com and hit the contact tab and send an email. And if you want to get Hellstorm, then we can get it to you, at a much more reasonable rate, because the shipping rates, well, heck, they're even shut down now in Canada. So you can't order anything in Canada. And a big, base of our customers are in Canada, UK, Australia. But it's just out of control with prices going up the way that they are, and it's not stopping. So just reach out if you want to get it, if you're outside of the U.S. And if you're in the U.S., we can let you know an easy way to do it. And if you don't want to use a cash check or money order, which you can, of course, and we do get money from all over the world. So yes, get Hellstorm. You're not going to enjoy it, but you, like Paul said, you need to read it. And like other people who I talked to even today, this book will show you what, as Paul said, what these, I don't know if they're people, but what they're capable of doing. I don't know if they're human, but whatever they are, what they're capable of doing. So, yeah, we're going to keep it going for as long as we can.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And shut it down should be reversed.
Open
Put
it
it
up.
that way, Dave. Yeah. Well, it should be back on them. Shut them down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, maybe one of the 6 points in that Labour thing, we had a seventh one, which is to make hitherto politically incorrect books publicly available throughout all UK libraries and put them on the history curriculum for 14 to 18-year-olds. Of course, many of them would be going home crying a lot to their parents if they were human. So maybe it's a little bit too young to be reading that stuff. I don't know, but
It probably is. Yeah, probably
it
is.
probably is.
Yeah,
it probably is. It's
yes,
it's tough
but they
stuff.
do
I don't
that.
know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know whether it is or not, because sorry to chime in there just then, but my father had a severe shell shock, which was untreated. So it was like a gramophone record that gets stuck in the groove. He relived World War II every day of his life after the war. So from a very early age, I understood more than the average child about World War II because I had it every day almost. Yes, it did cause me nerves and that, and I'm not blaming my father, not at all. But the positive side, wow, didn't that give me an insight into what war is really like? It really did. And it gives you a totally different perspective on it. And you look at it from a completely different angle, from the gung-ho, isn't this marvelous sort of stuff. So on a positive side, maybe it is good for young people to read that, because that their minds haven't been polluted by the ongoing propaganda that we're getting now all the time, and what we have had since World War II. Because I always want to be a fly on the wall. I want to know the truth, however ugly it is. I want to know the truth. Full stop. End of. Truth is truth. And lies need to be protected by censorship. Truth doesn't. Truth is pure, and it stands up to any question you want to put to it. So that's why I always say to people, when they say try and shout you down and things like that, um, if it was something ridiculous we was coming out with, I don't know, like trying to make people believe that trolls exist or something. I'm
do,
not
don't
talking
they?
about trolls on, well, not on the internet, but that's the wrong word. Shall we say, I don't know, some fictitious creatures that you find in fantasy.
Honest
Okay?
politicians.
Honest politicians, that's right. People wouldn't question you. They'd say, "Oh, it's bloody idiots" and things like that. But why is it they try and censor what people say? Don't people question that? Don't they think they smell a rat?
No, they
You know,
don't.
I'm,
No, that's the
this
problem.
is what gets me. And I
Yeah, they
think
don't.
what we've got, the problem we've got, is that to change society, we've had about 80 plus years of brainwashing, very, very skillful brainwashing. I mean, it's very clever brainwashing, and it'll take 1, 2, maybe 3 generations to
That's right.
undo that brainwashing. So, I mean, for example, we've been conditioned at school to look for a leader, and this is why truth movements are going nowhere, because they're all looking for a leader,
That's right.
but they don't look in
Exactly.
the mirror. And if you want to find a leader, just look in the mirror, and that leader will be looking back at you.
Right.
That's basically it. That's the way I look at it. We're all leaders. And what I mean by that is it's responsibility. We should all take responsibility for ourselves and not leave it to other people. That's what you do with politicians. You're leaving responsibility to really
To the
charlatans.
finest that we can produce, Eric, you were going to say, weren't you? The
Uh,
finest of our
not
men and
quite.
women are in
Not-
politics. Isn't that what you were going to say? Surely.
well,
The
not
finest
quite
what?
at that level.
Aunt Sally writes here
Oh,
in the chat, amazing, isn't it, that we can get any old shit, I like to say that, of all sizes sent to us for free from China, but not a book that explains our history from the USA. Yes, Aunt Sally, that is amazing.
Well, you can get it.
You can.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And
Just a little
we've
more
sent
effort.
Aunt Sally books before.
Aunt Sally, you've got them all. Aunt Sally's often in the bath by this time, by the way, Dave.
Come
doing
on,
the
Aunt
show.
Sally.
Yeah, she's probably in the bath reading the books, all wet and dog-eared and all that kind of stuff. But I think, Dave, we've talked about this before. It's really just about, on one level, very simple stuff. It's about a lot of people doing a little bit of work. It is.
Yes.
More and more people say, can I help? What can I do? Is there a way that I could speed this up? And it doesn't matter how small it is, just the mere fact that your attitude would be like that is a massive boost. That's the thing. Because then we all look around and, like I was saying earlier on, there's 3 million people signed that petition. Well, it's probably easy to sign an online petition. If you get all 3 million of them actually doing something, the problem is ultimately solved, right? That it might take some time to work out, but you go, okay, this is what's going on. But of course, as you were pointing out, Eric, there is a colossal amount of brainwashing. People have been subdued without even knowing it. They think they're just happy. Things that bug them, they can't be bothered to find out why it bugs them, etc., etc. But I think in all sorts of ways, getting the word out, which includes the provision of books that reveal the true aspects of history, forms a strong part of that. And I think reading, I drone on about it a bit here, but I think the CIA have said that reading is the number one brainwashing technique. It's the most powerful of all the communications platforms. And I can see why, because you, the reader, are leading your own reading experience. You're the one that keeps on turning the page and choosing to read the next paragraph. It's actually a thing that you invest your time into it. So it becomes very important. It's also good for, it just trains the critical faculties that much better so that you can discern bullshit much more quickly. So therefore, reading is important. I mean, not reading junk, of course. That's important. It's a bit like junk food. You don't want to be reading junk. But the books are out there. So...
And also self-respect. We've lost self-respect. That's what's happened. My grandfather saw this happening. I mean, he died in the early 70s. But when you look, and it's the same in America as in the UK, most people look like tramps. they walk around looking like tramps, slaves. And when you look at people in films and general photographs from the 50s and 40s, and people say, oh, he's looking on the past, people dressed smart. They looked smart. Why? Because they had self-respect. And Cary Grant said, I dress smart because people have to look at me. And I mean, but where has all the self-respect gone? You know,
Well, we need a
when you
nice,
see
as
people
we've said here, we
walking
need a
around-
good online gentleman's outfitters, and then we can all look dapper again as we go around bringing things back
Well,
to it. But
there are
it's true.
charity shops.
Yeah, there are. I go
that
to
you
them
can
as
get very
well.
cheap.
Actually,
That's
speaking
right.
about
And-
so here in the chat, someone is Aunt Sally is dog-eared. No, I didn't say that, did I, Billy Silver? But I quite like your wit. That's good. I didn't say that, Aunt Sally. Aunt Sally writes, she says, I do have the book. I am aware that they charge a fortune to send it to the UK from the USA, though. This is true, but Dave was just addressing that. What you do? One little paperback from the USA cost $40 to post to me in the UK. That's really, really mad, isn't it? It's bad. The other week, was it last week? I was talking about this book, Rulers of Evil. Was it last week that I was talking about it? Maybe I was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know if you're
Tupper
familiar with that book, Dave. Maybe I've discussed it with you. Tupper Saucy, yes, great name. Tupper Saucy.
Yes.
And-
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Upper Saucy.
It's an amazing.
He wasn't that bad, was he?
Well, Eric, I'll have to get you a PDF because I tell you, it's a difficult book to read. Not in the way that Hellstorm is. It's just
Heavy.
difficult. It's complex, right? It is. In fact, in the foreword, the publisher says, you will find this a challenge. Don't be frightened to just stop. My client, i.e. Mr. Saucy, doesn't mind what bit you read and when you read it. If you get stuck, move on to a bit that you like, because it's absolutely concentrated with historical references. But what I was going to say about books is, about that particular book, I don't know if I mentioned it the other way. I had a copy and it disappeared into the... I lent it out to people. I've lent it out to 3 people. Yeah, 3. And none of them have been able to finish reading it. Isn't that interesting? I thought it was really great. I understand why. I'm not having a go at them. It's absolutely... I found it really... They said I just couldn't finish it. It's just... brain's going like mush. Anyway, I thought... I don't know if I told this anecdote last week, but there is a sort of happy conclusion to it. I realised that the book was out there. I thought, I'll just buy myself another copy. So I went online... looking for a copy, ended up at Abe Books, which you may know of, big sort of second-hand thing, and came across a copy. Cheapest one I could find was £580 or something. Yeah. And the most expensive one was being sold for £1,280. I thought, ooh. And then I went...
That's how they limit access to it. Yeah.
That's right. Anyway, I've got a copy, you see. I've got a physical copy. It's out there. So I contacted my pal and I said, have you got that book? He said, yeah. I said, oh, jolly good. Is it in a good nick? He said, yes. So anyway, he kindly brought it back to me last night. It was in immaculate condition. Thank you very much, Paul, for that. And so I now have a book on my bookshelf worth about £600. And if I can just find some sucker to buy it.
I'll buy it. How much is a quid? Is a quid like a penny? I'm kidding.
No, Dave, it's not actually quite like a penny. It's close.
Sounds
It's
like
close.
a penny.
It's about $1.25 is a quid. Yeah, so it's quite pricey, the book, and
Too rich
this
for
is
my
one of these.
blood.
It's one of these publishing tales, yeah, because it was published by Murdoch's Empire. I think it's I can't remember the name of the publisher now. Big HarperCollins.
Yes.
Big guys, one of the big 4, right? Huge.
Yep.
So Murdoch's in charge when it was published in 1999. It got one print run and then it got pulled once Murdoch found out what it was about.
Yeah.
Right? Which is
Surprise.
it's an amazing book. It's one of these things that's about another block of information that's not talked about a great deal. And it's a very rich and rewarding reading experience for those that can actually finish the book. So I think another publisher may have reprinted it later on. There might be 2 versions. There's 2 covers. I've got the original one, the one with the vicar or the priest on the front, all dark and rulers of evil and all this kind of stuff. And I think it must have slipped under the radar. Then somebody found out and said, right, stop that. And therefore it's become rare. You can't get hold of a copy. But the PDF is freely available. But there's nothing quite like having the actual proper book.
That's right.
Particularly when you knock coffee over it and go, shit, there's my £600 book down there. I haven't
Make
done
sure
that,
it's
by
on
the way.
shelf. And
Yeah.
that's what they fear the most, because each of these books are like a bomb.
Yeah.
They just sit there. They don't move.
Yeah.
Don't bother you, but they sit there. And then when you open them up, you find out things you could have never imagined.
That's right. You do.
Yes. Truth bombs.
They are truth bombs, Dave. Absolutely spot on. They really, really are. And the more you sort of dip into these things and get an appetite for it and an aptitude and get the intellectual stamina for it, because you need stamina to go through these things. You do. You have to get up and you have to keep reading it. And you have to read it and read it and read it. And you have to go, oh, it's going to take me 3 weeks and I better keep sticking at it. Because I want to get to the end and find out, get the complete view. And that in itself strengthens you mentally. You become stronger because of it. You just do.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So
That's the point.
It is the point. They don't want you reading books and thinking for yourself because you might write a book now, and where's it all going to end?
Exactly. I want to read an email if I can.
Please.
And then I'm going to say farewell. Yes. I just got it, and I'm going to read it without revealing who it's from, because I didn't get the permission to do that.
That's fine.
And this just came in 10 minutes ago. Hello, Dave. I was just listening to your show with Paul. You had me in tears. Made me think that we all need to take every opportunity to let people know the impact they have, even on perfect strangers. My husband and I have bought several books that we would never have had if not for you and the streamers that made me aware of you, most notably Flood. Thank you for all you have done and the work you put in. My life has changed because of it. And I didn't read this yet. My husband's great-grandparents and grandfather were fortunate enough to leave Germany for the U.S. in 1927. His great-grandmother, when asked, would always say how wonderful she thought Hitler was. But my husband, being educated here, never understood. Thanks to finding Money Tree, we both have an understanding of history and the truth, and he is so grateful for that. Thank you so very much, Dave. I will see you in the chats. Now, this isn't me, obviously, or me solely, of course. This is me minimally, but these are the people like Tom. This is who should get the thanks. And the people like you, Paul, who have shows to disseminate this information. So we can thank the authors and the narrators and the filmmakers for everything they have done. And thank you for that email. It was wonderful.
It was. That was wonderful. Those communications like that are what this is all about, isn't it?
100%.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on a somber but really exhilarating show as well at the same time because of what it addresses and such a great man. Someone's just written in the chat, Mr. Goodrich was and is a national treasure. He is. Yeah. A nation, again, being a race of people, a tribe of people, all of the same race with a shared and received history, culture and language. You're in a nation, whether you like it or not. You're in the nation that Mr. Goodrich was in, and it's a great one. And he did fantastic, amazing work. And his contribution is immense. And if you read it, if you haven't yet read Hellstorm or even some of his other books, there is another one, a follow-up to Hellstorm, not as well known.
Summer of Hate.
Summer of Hate.
Yep.
You will, in all likelihood, be changed by reading them, and for the better, even though it can be a bit of a struggle to get through the book. You will be strengthened by it, and
Yes.
So do it. If you haven't read it, get it and read it. And then maybe we do a show in 6 months' time when you've all read it, and you can all call in and share your experiences of what it was like. That'd be a good one to do a book reading on, wouldn't it? Book reading club, Hailstorm,
but
right?
less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Because about 2 months from now is the 80th observance of the Dresden firebombing.
Yes. Well, I have a show, Dave, on file that I did with Tom about it. I don't know what year. Maybe it was 2017. And I've played it every now and again when it's come up. So I've still got the file on tape. I'll probably play it again. We did a show for about an hour.
Yes.
It's the one, I mean, I know he's done other ones, and I need to sort of try and help with an archive. So if you're out there and you've got, you have any of Tom's shows that I might not have or whatever, we maybe need to put all these things together and make them available in an archive of just so you can hear him talk and see what he said, because he was a wonderful communicator. He never thought he was. This is what made him so good.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious. Tom, you sound great. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was funny. It's like a running gag.
Yes, exactly.
It was.
Exactly. Yeah, we loved him.
We did.
And
absolutely love you, Tom.
Yes.
So,
and Saturday is the remembrance of Pearl Harbor.
Is it really?
The anniversary, yes.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think we'll play out with this song then. I know we're before the end of the 3 hours, but Patrick sent us, Dave, and you can hear this if you want. It's very brief. This is counterpoint, actually. This is the sort of thing that would make Tom chuckle, right? I'm absolutely convinced. This is absolute propaganda.
American propaganda.
It's American propaganda. And it's called Remember Pearl Harbor, isn't that right?
Yes, Carson Robinson.
And this is one of these rah, 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 let's go get 'em type things. I haven't even heard it all the way through. But it's
martial music.
Yeah, it's really good. So I'm gonna play this out. Before I do, we'll just get a final word from everybody here. Then we'll end with that song, and we'll close out. So, Eric, any final words? Anything you'd like to say as we wrap up here for the show for tonight?
Well, I'd like to thank Dave for coming on the show and for his very, very moving tribute. And it certainly moved me and brought back, I didn't know Tom Goodrich, but it brought back a lot of memories of what happens, with my father. Very, very similar. And now he's in peace. And I think he was on this earth. I think we're all on this earth to do something. And he helped. I think his books will become even more famous now. So I'm pretty sure they will. Thank you, Dave, for coming on. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Eric.
Remember Pearl Harbor.
Sorry about that. That was the start of the song. Everybody else
just want to say
he just kicked off. Go on, it's Patrick.
I just want to say I thank God for people like Dave who just follow through and have guts to speak the truth when it is very unpopular amongst the people in power who should not be in power. So thank you, Dave, very much.
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that.
Dave, any last words?
Yes. Thank you, Eric, Patrick, and of course, Paul, for taking the time out to honor our great friend Tom. And he's gone, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like he's with us now. In fact, I can almost hear his self-deprecating tone right now. Going, oh yeah, I'm not. Yeah. So he is in a better place, I believe. And I think the way that we can honor him is, and I believe that Eric was correct, that Tom's work is only going to become more well known. A lot of artists who are celebrated today, of course, in their lifetimes, died in ignominy and poverty and misery. Tom certainly wasn't like that, but fortunately, but I think his work, his body of work, will become more and more popular as we continue to march toward the finish line, toward the end zone. And of course, that end zone is being able to have unfettered free speech. And that's what they fear the most. So thank you, Eric, for your kind words, and Patrick for your kind words, and Paul for your friendship and your show, and Tom for everything you gave to all of us and to the world.
Brilliant, Dave. Brilliant. Absolutely wonderful show. Very, very different tone this week because it had to be, and it was. I want to thank everybody in the Rumble chat for all your comments. We've not really had too much time for them, but I can see that it's been very lively. We've had a very large audience, a very good audience on Rumble today. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And this one is for you, Tom, because this is the sort of stuff that you would have never have played in a million years. This is complete counterpoint, and I haven't even heard it all the way through, but I'm pretty sure it is. This is Remember Pearl Harbor by Hank Fan. I have no idea what that means. This is one of these things.
No, it's Carson Robinson. Robinson.
Carson
Hank
Robinson.
Fan's the YouTube it was swiped from.
Okay, cool. And of course, we'll be back next week. And just as you listen to this, just imagine Tom laughing or spitting or something, because this is probably everything he kind of wrote against, I guess, in a way. We'll see you all next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Remember Pearl Harbor. Remember Pearl Harbor when you sight down the barrel of your gun. Remember Pearl Harbor, never stop till you drop everyone. Give 'em bomb for bomb, give 'em shell for shell, kill 100 rats for every boy that fell. Remember Pearl Harbor, wipe the Jap from the map, give 'em hell. Dawn on the Sunday morning, dawn on the wide blue sea, Hawaii, Isle of Sunshine, lay so peacefully. Then from the sky without warning, the vultures swarmed to attack. Hiding behind their peace talk, they stabbed our boys in the back. Remember Pearl Harbor, every hour, every day that we live. Remember Pearl Harbor and the crime we can never forgive. Through the sweat and toil, through the blood and tears, keep this battle cry ringing in our ears. Remember Pearl Harbor, let this song keep us strong through the years. Remember how we used to call them our little brown brothers? What a laugh that turned out to be. Well, we can all thank God that we're not related to that yellow scum of the sea. They talked of peace and of friendship. We found out just what all that talk was worth. All right, they've asked for it, and now they're going to get it. We'll blow every one of them right off of the face of the earth. Remember Pearl Harbor, in the air, on the land, on the sea. Remember Pearl Harbor, here's a job we can do, you and me. Keep 'em flying high, clear across the pond, make our dollars fight, buy another bond. Remember Pearl Harbor, day and night, pray and fight, carry on.
And that's it for this week, folks. That song summed up everything that Tom Goodrich kind of wrote against. So if you want to get clear about things, go get Hellstorm and check out his other books at moneytreepublishing.com. We'll be back again here next week. Bye for now.